Thank you for joining me. I'm John Razimus. Thank you for joining me. I'm John Razimus. Thank you for joining me. I'm John Razimus. Let me get the link out so I can share it to Twitter land and let them know there's a live stream right now. All right. So I just tweeted out the old live stream now here link on Twitter. I'm John Razimus. In this video, we're going to be talking about a lot of different stuff. Just basically, we're talking about the 10K giveaway contest. The rules have been posted on Twitter and on my share or post page on YouTube. And these are the rules. You have to watch 3 videos. Video 1 is entitled 10,000 subscribers goal reached, ! Type that in, go to youtube.com/hoaxhunter and do a search, type that in. And the question you have to answer is this: what is the name of the mountain talked about in this video? Video 2 you have to watch is entitled The Comedy Store Ghost Investigation. Remember, just go on over to youtube.com/hoaxhunter, type it in the search bar or the regular bar if you want to search it that way. Maybe put Razimus, but some of my videos don't have Razimus tagged. But the Comedy Store Ghost Investigation question is this: what is the name zoomed up on at the 34-minute and 42-second mark? Very simple question. I give you the answer. You don't even have to watch the whole video. Just go straight to 34 minutes and 42 seconds. Video 3 that you have to watch, 3, is called Book Review, L.W. DeLawrence, Telepathy. It's a tiny little booklet I did a review of. Actually, here is the little booklet. It's an original, we're talking almost 100-year-old booklet put out there by L.W. DeLawrence in Chicago. And not too many minutes into the video, I say, on page 5, he says, and I quote him, and I say a word. What is the first word that I say after I say on page 5, he says? And those 3 answers from the 3 videos, the 3 questions you see on my Twitter or posted on my YouTube comment posting. I see someone has joined us. You email those 3 answers to enter the 10K giveaway. You have 2 weeks to enter these answers. The deadline is February 8th at 11:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So I give you 2 weeks to watch a few seconds of 3 of my videos. It's just a buffer to keep people that have never watched a single video from entering. I do notice last time virtually no one, maybe half, maybe 25%, maybe it was only 10%, but it's only 3 videos, probably no more than 3 minutes of your time to enter. Thank you for joining me. Who is this? Free Sinker Silver.
How's my audio? Can you hear me? All right.
I can hear you fine.
Not too loud? Okay.
No, that's good. Thanks for joining us.
So I'm a few minutes late. I was, grocery shopping, and then I don't know why I use Mozilla. So I should use Google Chrome, and then I log in. I see your link, and I'm clicking on the link, and it's like, you have to download Google Chrome. I was like, oh no. Gosh. But then I just went to Google Chrome and I had it open, so that's why I'm a few minutes late. Sorry.
Anyway. I think I started 2 minutes late, so it's no big deal.
Yeah, no worries. But
all right.
Quite cold here. It's like freezing out. Well, it's not that bad, but.
Is it snowing out there?
It's been snowing a little bit. We haven't had too much snow here actually until like last week. We've escaped snow this winter. But then about a week and a half ago, the temperature went down to -15 below Celsius, below 0 in Celsius. I don't know what that is Fahrenheit, but it's like, 0 is the temperature that water freezes at. And then we got some real snow, 10 centimeters. And you know, I don't have to shovel snow. I don't really have to put up with that. But you know, it's nice for a little bit, but then it gets really ugly.
Yeah.
So.
No, snow is a novelty here. Am I loud enough? Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, no, it's perfect. Yeah.
All right.
Like I said, wish I could get a nice mic like that, but I just have my crappy Logitech microphone right now. But
Okay. No, I know
I
you
can hear
do
you fine.
have
It's all good.
you do have a Yeti Blue. I've seen it in your
Yeah, I
videos.
have the Yeti Blue. I just don't know how to quite set it up so I can get audio and then also speak into it at the same time.
Yeah, I've had issues. I'm surprised it works right now. Okay.
Yesterday, speaking of technology, I purchased a bass guitar, an electric bass guitar. So I'm going to be producing my own music now.
Wow.
You know, just for fun, just for fun. But I can make, you know, music for my channel here and there because I have a guitar like you see in the background. And what's cool about my video software is you can make it sound like an electric guitar if you want to. You can make it distorted, and so I don't have to have a real guitar, but yeah. So that way I'll be able to. I want to do like the whole thing. So you know, like
Cool.
I just have to get some beats. You know, I don't have a real drum set or anything like that, but and then yeah, it's a fun, it's a fun creative you know outlet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
music. Yeah.
I'm a musician.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. Oh yeah.
oh, I can hear some echo. Okay. It's gone now. But the coolest guitar I've seen recently was played by Billy Idol's guitarist, Steve Stevens. And
Nice.
he was on stage playing this white futuristic. It looks like a guitar, but I don't know if it has strings or if it has lasers, but it sounds like a synthesizer.
Oh
Yet
yeah.
it looks like a guitar. It doesn't look like a keytar. It
Hmm.
looks like a regular guitar, but it looks all white and futuristic. Man, I want to get the model number. I'm sure it's very
Yeah.
expensive, but he was able to switch between sounding like a keyboard and sounding like a guitar. It was
Wow.
really, really cool.
That's pretty cool. So I've heard the music on your channel. I think it sounds really pretty, like good atmospheric music. But like, do you play like instruments like guitars or
Yeah.
anything? Oh,
Oh,
cool.
I play guitar.
Oh yeah, nice.
I used to have two electric guitars, but
Yeah.
I'm
So
pulling
did
out
I.
this.
So did I. But I sold them a long time ago.
Yeah.
I used to have a cheap bass, which I sold. It's the sort of thing where I've never been so serious about, but you know, you get in, you kind of go up and down over the years, get
Mhm.
more into it.
Yeah, I
But
had to pay the bills, and so
yeah,
I had to let
right,
go of
right.
my two electric guitars, and I
Yeah.
had what looked like a cruddy Squire
Oh, okay,
guitar,
okay.
but after researching, it was a Squire made in the USA
Oh,
at the
okay.
same factory in the USA that burned down.
Hmm.
So it's like the last Squire before it burned down, and it was like one of the most expensive Squires in the world.
Hmm.
And I sold it for a good amount of money. And then
Yeah.
I had a really nice American Standard Strat. It was from 1997.
Hmm.
The Squire was from 1989, I believe, and
Wow.
my Strat was from 97. And some guy on the other side of the world bought it, and
Wow.
man, they paid a lot because I guess they like
Yeah.
American Standard Strats over there. Yeah.
Yeah. I used to have a Stratocaster too. I sold it. I forget for how much, but how's it? Do I have an Echo still?
No, it's gone.
Okay,
Here's
good.
my latest instrument that I
Oh,
actually have
nice.
acquired. It is
Wow.
called the Korg Monologue,
Yeah.
and I thought that I could play regular keyboard stuff with it, just with
Right.
cool, different atmospheric ambient,
Right. Yeah. That
and you
looks
can.
awesome.
You definitely can, but it's a little more gimmicky than I thought it
Hmm.
was.
Oh, okay.
It
Okay.
comes off almost like video game music every time.
Oh. Oh. Okay. Okay.
And I will be using it,
Yeah.
but not as much as my micro Korg. I have two different micro Korgs that I kind of prefer.
That's pretty cool. I don't even really know what that is. Like what microKORG is. It's like a synthesizer.
Um, Let me go grab one of them. It's
Yeah.
not too
Sure.
far away. Let me see it. Okay. So here's my original microkorg
Oh, nice.
that I got a long time ago. We're talking 2007. I got
Wow.
this, and this has the richest, most
Yeah.
bass-filled sound. A
Really?
really rich sound you don't hear with the newer ones. The new ones sound kind of cheap
Hmm.
because I have one of the slightly newer ones right here. It's a nice microkorg. It definitely has a different sound. This is a
Wow.
plastic model, and believe it or not, two of the settings on this microkorg. It's called the
Hmm.
microkorg XL. It's a slightly different model.
Yeah.
Two of the settings reference John Teeter, the time traveler.
Oh, really?
So what are the chances I
That's it.
buy a keyboard that has one of the songs is called 2036.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
the year he supposedly came from. And another setting is called Time Travel Zero or something like that. And that's another name he went by. So
Hmm.
whoever invented this was a fan of the John Teeter story. I thought
Yeah,
that was pretty funny.
that's a funny coincidence. Does
Yeah.
that come with software or like to
No, it's 100%. Everything's already in it.
oh, okay, cool.
But I do have a Korg drum machine where you can put your own samples in.
Okay, nice.
And I
Yeah,
have been using that for years. It's called the ES1. But
cool.
I do have a couple new drum machine type things, and these I
Yeah.
bought about a year ago for the Mysterialis show, and
Okay.
I haven't even used it because it's hard
Hmm.
to incorporate it. But
Right.
this is the what is this one? It's the Korg. What is it? I think it's called. Let me look at the other one.
You can
That
make
one.
beats with that, like drum beats.
Yeah, you can make drum beats. It's a tiny, not too expensive drum machine. Okay, here we go. This is the Korg bass, where you can
Oh
make a
yeah.
little bass riff. Because I don't
Nice.
have a bass guitar.
Right. Yeah.
This thing can make some pretty cool bass riffs. And then this one makes some other sound. I don't even know. I
Yeah.
can't remember.
Yeah. Yeah. I forgot to mention that the bass I got is it's a 5-string bass, so I'm looking
Wow.
forward to it. It should have four, like it allows you to play four lower notes than what would be on the standard, because most basses are like 4 strings. So this one's
Hmm.
that, I'm not an expert in music. It's something I do for fun, but I brought my friend along with me, and he's a professional bass player. He gave me all the advice, so it was cool. I got
Okay,
him to okay it.
cool.
Yeah, he was in a band called Last Bullet, and they were a pretty, like, they never got to this top, because rock is kind of, it's not like it was back in the 90s, but they were
Hmm.
on radios, they toured across Canada, they played for hundreds of people, sometimes thousands of people at a time. They put out various CDs, and it was like hard hitting, like hard rock, kind of along the lines of AC/DC and Guns N' Roses, that kind of music. So I thought it was really cool to know someone that was like in a professional band like that, and he was able to give me some advice, and so that's pretty cool.
Wow.
But I think they were together for like a while, like 8 or 9 years. Yeah, and they recently went their own ways, but he's still making music and
Cool.
probably be in another band soon. But I couldn't live that lifestyle of having to be on the road, and um, sometimes when you're in a band, you have to play really late at night. Like you have to play 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock in the morning, and it's like you just have to be, if you're used to going to bed earlier, then it's like you have to be able to re-energize yourself. So it's not for everyone.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. The, I met a bass player not too long ago.
Oh yeah.
I went to the Viper Room, and it's the first time I've ever been there. Just as a tourist, I wanted to check it out.
Yeah.
It's a famous club, rock club, and the bartender was the bass player
Oh yeah.
for Scott Weiland and the Wildabouts.
Oh
And
yeah.
I
Scott,
did buy.
from Stone Temple Pilots, that guy, right?
Well, he's
Or
not
not
from
that
Stone
guy?
Temple Pilots.
Okay, okay. I
He,
thought I was thinking of a different one.
he's just from the
Yeah.
Scott Weiland's last band before he passed
Okay,
away.
okay,
He
right,
kind
right,
of broke off and did a solo album,
right, right,
and
right.
the bass player from that group, and his name is Tommy Black, and he was a really nice guy. He was overly a nice bartender, so I recommend checking out the Viper Room. Tommy
Yeah.
Black, very nice bartender, really nice guy, and yeah, he said there are a couple
Yeah.
tracks they held back. He
Oh
said there's
yeah.
a couple tracks they didn't release yet, and he hopes they release it in the future. But
Yeah.
I'm a big Stone Temple Pilots fan. I'm a
Oh
big
yeah.
Scott Weiland
Yeah. I
fan.
think they made some good music too. I don't have like all their albums, but they've put together some good stuff. There's this guy, Rick Beato. He's like an American guy who like he has a YouTube channel. It's pretty popular, and he breaks down Stone Temple Pilots music, like all sorts of popular songs from the '90s, from Generation X. And he did a Stone Temple Pilots song. I forget which one it was, but but anyways, it's a great way of like showing you how great that music was. You know, like 20 years ago, there was some good music being produced. Nowadays, it's a little different, but maybe I'm biased because of my age. You know, whatever the kids are listening to these days.
So Brandon just donated 99 cents, and thank you, Brandon. And that's cool.
Yeah.
He might be busy, but there is a little chat. Sometimes it's hard to see it because there's so many windows open. But we do have a little chat. If anyone has any questions, you want to talk about any subjects, let us know. Okay, sorry for cutting you off there.
Oh yeah, no worries. I didn't have much else to say.
Okay. Oh, Brandon says he might join us. So
Cool.
would that be okay if
Oh
Brandon
yeah,
wanted
yeah,
to
for sure.
join us? Okay. He said in 5 minutes he might be joining us.
I
Sure.
told I told most of my my ghost material last time we were talking. So
Mm-hmm.
you know, I've been reading and I've been reading this cool book. The Soul. I don't know if you can see here. The Soul of Ancient Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
If you've heard of Robert Bauval, he's this is Robert Bauval and Ahmed Osman, Restoring the Spiritual Engine of the World. And I got this book because I was interested in learning about like pagan, the pagan traditions of Egypt, but it ended up being not what I expected. The book ended up being a history of Egypt, more in the modern period, more of the last 2,000 years, with an emphasis on the last 500 years, and really on emphasis on the last 100 years, like in present times. But anyways, that's we don't have to talk about that. But if we get bored, I can talk about that book.
No, I'm interested in ancient Egypt religion.
Yeah.
The more I research it, the more you can see it's a hodgepodge of even more ancient religions they borrowed, kind of like the Greek borrowed past pagan mythologies, turned it into a religion.
Yeah,
and Egypt did the same thing.
I guess I could bring up a little bit from that book. I won't go into all the modern stuff, but just in terms of religion, like and I'm not an expert, I'm just sort of summarizing the main points of the book. Like there was, of course, we're all familiar with the ancient Egyptian period and the hieroglyphs and the pharaoh, and Beauval characterizes it as the imperative of maintaining Maat, M-A-A-T, so M-double-A-T. Maat is like the spiritual order. It may mean truth, or it may mean justice, and the pharaoh has to, I guess he sort of personifies Maat, and he also maintains Maat, and it has to do with a lot of stuff like they had a certain calendar that they wanted to keep for many years, and when the Romans got involved, the Romans were like, no, we got to change the calendar a little bit because it's moving off every year. It's moving, but the Egyptians were like, no, there's a cycle of I forget how long, like 1,200 years. It's like it'll correct itself. Just hold on to this cycle. But eventually, the Romans changed it. But so then, there was the priestly class in Egypt, and there was, I don't want to get too judgmental here, but it's the whole thing with it's the whole thing with like in these ancient traditions, it's like there's a secret class. Like not every, you know, these divine secrets aren't for everyone. Therefore, the priests, and then they can get the secret knowledge, and then you know, and the pharaoh was at the top of their hierarchy. So that kind of rubs me kind of the wrong way. Like shouldn't this, you know, they like to celebrate ancient Egypt, but it's like it didn't seem like they wanted to share this you know, eternal life with everyone. They kind of wanted to keep it in their little. But maybe I'm reading too much into it. Everyone can have their own opinion. And then the Greeks sort of, well, I guess Alexander the Great, he conquered he conquered a lot of the, you know, the Near East and that world, and he founded Alexandria, which still exists today. And so I guess Egypt was part of the Greek Empire for a few hundred years, but the Greeks weren't really so much imposing their cultural control. It was sort of like a hybridization. They were sort of blending together. And there was this god called Serapis, which was a Greek god based on Zeus, but they kind of mixed him with I forget which one of the Egyptian gods. So he was sort of like a hybrid Greek Egyptian god, who later sort of became even associated with Christ. There was like, you can worship Christ or you can worship Serapis. And you may have heard of the Serapeum. It's like this partially submerged temple. I don't know if that has to do with the same thing. So the Greeks were still allowing the old spiritual traditions to continue. But then it all changed with the Roman period. In 30 BC, so 30 years before Christ, Mark Antony and Cleopatra were defeated by, what was it, Augustus? See, there were different Caesars, but you know, one of the Caesars, you know, I think it was Augustus or Octavian. He captured Egypt, and that, you know, Christianity hadn't started yet, but you know, the Roman Empire was going to survive for, you know, almost 450 years from the capture of Egypt, and then of course with slowly different forms of Christianity spread into Egypt and around Africa. Like they spread into all throughout North Africa. And it wasn't just like the Catholic religion back then. There were the Monophysites, there were the Copts. The Coptic people were in Egypt, and they had kind of their own form of Christianity. I'm not sure, I'm not an expert. I'm not sure how that differs, you know. And then there was the Byzantium, you know, they had their own Orthodox tradition. So basically, it got to this position where the Romans and the Roman Empire divided in 395 of the Common Era. I'm going to do a video on this on my own channel and summarize all, but I'm not going to go into all this stuff. But basically, you got to the situation where once the Christians gained more of a hold in Egypt, the old religion went away, and for a few hundred years, like, most of Egypt was like Coptic Christian and devoutly so. But then you got this tension between the authorities and the common people, because the authorities were like a different form of Christianity, like Orthodox, because they were absorbed into the Byzantine Empire, or was it Catholic? I'm still not entirely sure, because, you know, one thing melted into the other thing. So I'm not really sure, but they were sort of like, then they were persecuting the Copts, and the Copts were feeling kind of like left out. They were kind of feeling like, our form of Christian. A lot of this has to do with the disagreement over whether Christ is of one nature. Is he of a dual nature or one nature? And I'm not going to answer that question. I don't know. But that was the controversy. That had to do with the Monophysites. I don't know if that was a Coptic thing. But basically, we all know the spread of Islam in the 7th century. When the Arabs from Saudi Arabia, what is now Saudi Arabia, conquered Egypt in was it 622 of the Common Era, around that date. I don't quote me exactly. The Copts were like, hey, welcome. I mean, you guys are probably better than our rulers, and but the Arabs imposed a tax on anyone who's not a Muslim. So you get to pay a poll tax. So that encouraged people to convert to Islam. So basically, within 100 years, by the middle of the 8th century, most of Egypt had been Christianized, and they'd also the Coptic population interbred a lot with the Arabs. So you've got this native Egyptian population increasingly mixing with Arabs. And anyways, that's where I'll leave off, because that sort of takes us into the more modern world. Yeah,
I'm kind of interested in. Here's Brandon. Brandon just joined us.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hey, I was just gonna say I'm kind of interested in the Thoth god of Egypt, and how he's the god of magic.
Right.
And supposedly something associated with Thoth sprouted into the tarot card system.
Right.
And, I'm kind of interested in, there's a pharaoh who turned a snake, a staff into a snake. That was real magic. That was real magic if it happened.
Yeah.
And we don't see that today. You know what I mean? We don't see magic of that level. So that's interesting to me.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's what I wanted to learn about in that book, but like I said, it ended up being more about the modern history.
Yeah,
so I can't really comment on that. It's interesting stuff. Who knows what was going on in each? Like I did a video on the pyramids, I may have mentioned, and the mysteries and all that. We may have touched on this last time. I forget, but all those mysteries.
So Brandon, what's going on?
I just got back from work, so I just got out of work.
Okay.
So yeah,
that's cool. Is it cold up there? That's why you got the gloves on.
Yeah. It'd be nice to be in the Southwest right now. Maybe we could just pray.
I was just in Santa Barbara for like 2-3 weeks or something, and it was it was the worst weather there, which means rain. You know what I mean? So it's a little bit of a difference, Yeah, no, it's a huge difference. You know what's interesting is that I had a nightmare of a travel, but like it took me 4 days to get home, and all this stuff, and but it was freezing. I had to spend one night in Phoenix. It was freezing in Phoenix, the Wolf Blood Moon night, and I was like, "Oh, the moon looks cool," But like it was freezing that night. I didn't know how bad it dropped. Man.
I guess it's at a good elevation once you get into the, it's like above sea level. I don't know exactly how much, but
yeah.
Well, I guess Phoenix is pretty hot. What do I know? I mean, I don't live in that part of the world. But
yeah, it was pretty cold on Blood Wolf Moon night. Have you heard about the rituals? A lot of practitioners are just doing rituals. Supposedly, the super blood wolf moon enhances. And I didn't do anything in particular. I did film it though, and I will probably in the next video show the little filming I did of it with a Sony Handycam. But it was pretty cool. It was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I tried filming it, and like my fingers were literally freezing off. Like I went outside with my tripod, and I don't have a good quality camera to attempt that. I was just trying. I was curious to see how it would look, and but I did start to see the shadow approaching over the moon, which was pretty cool. But it was so cold. I mean, it was like -20 Celsius with like severe wind. And like I said, my fingers were freezing off. So it was already like 11 o'clock. So I was ready. I go to bed relatively early. So
I totally forgot about it. I totally forgot about the wolf,
Yeah.
And then I did a live stream like in the early morning. And I'm like, I'm freezing. I'm in Phoenix. There's like there's a weird sketchy strip club here. There's this there. And I'm like, oh, wow, look at the moon. And like the moon was, I'm like, oh. But so I caught a little bit of it. It was pretty cool. I remember the first time I saw I realized what the blood moon meant. And it was in 2007 in Burning Man, the first night. I remember looking up, and the moon, it was a blood moon. And I remember thinking, oh wow, this is like why the goddess is connected to the moon. Like the solar male gods are usually connected with the sun, and the moon, the white goddess. I have a book called The White Goddess, which is all about the moon and the goddess, how the goddess is associated with the moon. Why? Because there's a 28-day moon cycle, And that 28-day cycle follows exactly the women's menstrual cycle. And I have to deal with this because my girl's pregnant right now, so I'm gonna be a dad. And so it's interesting, like oh, it's red, and then they associated, the ancients would associate that with, the harvest and the fertile ground and all this stuff. It was the goddess basically, sort of like for fertilizing the ground in a way for the crops. It's very sense. Very interesting. I got that all in that one moment. It was pretty cool.
Wow. Yeah, congratulations on you're gonna be a dad.
Yeah. Oh my God. Oh wow. Yeah, I saw the sonogram, and I'll tell you, if you guys ever have kids, you'll see that first sonogram, and you see a little thing moving around in like an egg, and it's got little arms, it had like a little big nose, and a heart. And you could hear the heartbeat. I wanted to take a sample of that heartbeat and like make a song about it or something like that, Wow. But man, I just broke down. It was just like, and like for her, it was like very clinical, but for me, it was just like a mystical experience, man. Wow. It was just, it was incredible. So thank you.
Yeah, I've heard it changes you. I guess you don't know until you experience that. Wow.
Yeah, you really don't. You really don't. And Duncan Trussell just had a baby too, and he's talking all about that on his podcast. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting, it's like yourself and like a little other thing. It's kind of a miracle, like I figure like life, it just really is a miracle, and it just like all of a sudden, I mean, and I'm sure this will hit me more when the baby's born too, is that I'm going to do everything for that baby, and like my life is now right there. Like that's my, one of my reasons for living and for sticking around, it's incredible. So thanks anyway. Yeah.
Wow. So the subject of this video, it's pretty open-ended. We could talk about anything. I don't care. It doesn't really matter. But we do have, there is a 10K contest. I don't know if anyone saw that, but I'm making a new painting just with the new logo. It's not a big deal, but here it is, and I'm gonna have to trace it out. But I did, I draw this myself. It's inspired by a runic.
John, there's something weird behind you. When I don't know if it was a reflection, but I just saw something weird moving like it would be behind the left of your head. It was like
if I had to guess, it was probably dust.
Okay,
it gets dusty back there, and there's probably dust on here.
We can go over the live stream later, and then like I will check that out. Maybe it was dust. But...
Okay.
It looked like something kind of like moving or like doing a swervy little motion, kind of.
Well, it gets really dusty back here. I can show you.
You never know what could be. That's a cool one.
Yeah, this is the Robert Johnson.
Oh yeah,
that I did, and this
as a skeleton.
But,
cool.
But those who enter the contest, I'm going to be giving away, a T-shirt of your choice on the Teespring page. I don't have the new T-shirt yet. I ordered it for myself so I can have it. But, here's the older one. And you can choose that one if you win the contest. You can choose this Robert Johnson playing the guitar skeleton. I also have 2 extra copies of this.
Oh, wow.
And it's just part of my record collection. I did buy them considering a giveaway years ago. And I have 2 copies sealed. This is my copy that's open. And I'll open it so you can see. Oh, no.
It's a great record.
This is one of the sealed copies. Okay, this is one of the sealed copies I'm going to be giving away. And it's a pink album. It's by Shooter Jennings. Shooter Jennings is Scientologist. I'm not Scientologist. but I respect him as an artist. His religion doesn't define his art.
No.
And so, I think he's a pretty cool artist.
Definitely.
He does a black country mostly. But this album is more of his experimental album, where he kind of experimented with some electronic things, and he has the never-ending story theme.
Falcor, yeah.
And yeah, he has Falcor right there with a machine gun in his hand. And it's really a striking.
Really cool.
Really
and there's a Marilyn
scene.
Manson. I think Marilyn Manson might be on a track.
Marilyn Manson's a friend of
Cat
Shooter
People
Jennings that does a Cat People David Bowie cover.
Yeah,
and this cover was before David Bowie died.
Oh,
and
really?
So, literally a couple months after this came out, David Bowie died.
Oh,
so they didn't do the cover knowing that he was going to die. So it's probably the last cover ever done before David Bowie passed away. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
And I have a documentary called The Attributes of Demons, and for some reason people are sharing it. And so I'm going to do part 2. And if any of you want to contribute to part 2, feel free to talk about your opinion of demons. I'm also going to talk about fairies.
Oh, cool.
And perhaps even some positive or neutral stories. So I'm not going to focus on demons or pure evil, although most definitely I'm going to talk about pure evil demons. I'm also going to talk about fairies and leprechauns. And some people say fairies are evil. Some people say they're neutral or positive, nature spirits. So I'm going to have different perspectives in part 2. And if you have any stories or anything you've read or heard or experienced and you want to contribute, feel free to submit a video on over to my email address.
Sure. Awesome. Maybe I can contribute something. I'd have to probably do more research.
Okay. I know for sure I'll be able to talk about the fairy tradition, and because Tolkien was very well versed. I mean, that's pretty much what we study is the fairy tradition. And in Ireland, it's a little different from like Wales. Every little section in their depiction of what the fairy folk are, and even in like Scandinavian countries and Germany and things like that, it varies. Like, so in Ireland, they are demons pretty much. You know, they have a more malevolent nature to them, I guess. But in the Scandinavian countries, they're very much more noble and you know, enchanting and all this stuff. So yeah, it's interesting.
I asked a contributor to the channel, and they are in Ireland, so they can give a firsthand Irish perspective on that.
Yeah,
it might be neutral, it might be positive. I'm not sure. We will see. Hopefully, we can add a world view on it. And I'm going to start off the documentary with a quote with Bjork. Bjork says, Bjork is asked about demons randomly, like many years ago. And you would think as a pop star, she would be like, whatever, you know? But no, she says demons are the slipperiest of creatures.
Whoa.
And I'm going to start off with that.
That's cool.
That's true. You can't catch them. You can't even prove they exist.
Yeah,
and there are a lot of haters that say, you're just brainwashing people with propaganda. You know, I have equipment that goes off, which this equipment is designed to just detect anything with a static field walking towards it. And static fields can't answer yes or no questions randomly unless they're intelligent. That's just something I noticed, you know? So I've purchased many static related devices like this one.
Oh, wow.
You can't really see it too well, but you know, the old ball.
Yep.
I bought a very rare, hard to find, maybe because it's toxic if you break it or something. It's probably dangerous for kids. But I bought this static ball in an attempt to use it in ghost investigations, because if a ghost was walking through it, you would see something.
Yeah.
So I might use it in the future, but I haven't purchased many static related devices just for fun. I've done it because the meters, the static feature goes off intelligently.
Right. Well, aren't they? I mean, are they static or is it more electromagnetic?
It's static.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I could see people saying, I've used static equipment. Nothing happens. Well, these beings aren't walking static. They're more, there are more complicated than that. What they can do is set off a static charge at will, and they could turn it off so they could have no static field if they want to. But one of the easiest ways they can communicate is with static fields. That's what I noticed firsthand.
Right.
So I've been researching static fields a little bit, and static fields are kind of mysterious. There is a branch at NASA which studies static electricity.
Huh.
I think they did it for the spacesuits, so the electronics wouldn't short out. Really practical reasons.
Right.
But I think it goes beyond that. I think it's a mysterious. It's separate from electricity. Static electricity is separate. There's even a couple education websites from universities saying it's not even the same thing.
Wow. Interesting.
It's a current that is closed and not open, or vice versa. I'm not an expert.
Yeah.
I will research it and maybe make a video on static electricity, the nature, the mysterious nature of static electricity, what it is. Because I asked my dad, who did work at NASA, and he spouted off immediately, square inch. If you feel a static charge, that's 10,000 volts per square inch. And I was like, I didn't know that.
Whoa, that's
so
cool.
It's more volts than it seems.
Mm-hmm.
But it is harmless if you just touch something and a static electricity builds up.
Can I ask a question? In this documentary, are you going to go into how demons can manipulate emotions of people, or is that going to be like a separate episode?
No, most definitely. I'm going to talk about that
because
it seems dumb, but the fact is, if you watch Ghost Adventures over and over, every episode, you can see patterns that even the Ghost Adventures crew don't mention. I think they don't mention it because they don't want to scare the audience. They want the audience to have a wholesome, family-friendly show atmosphere, or at least in the early episodes, they kind of focused on that. Now they're going a little bit darker, but one of the things they do talk about, Zach Bagans says, this guy wanted to punch me in the face out of nowhere. And we basically paid him to investigate the place, and he said, okay. Yet he wants to punch them in the face. They're paying this guy $500 probably to investigate his business for one night, maybe 2 nights. I'm sure they go back. You never know. With the Ghost Hunters crew, a lady said that they investigate for a week straight, and then they compile that footage to make it look like it's one night. Which, if you're looking for ghost evidence, makes sense. You can't get it all in 24 hours sometimes, but the guy literally wanted to punch Zach Bagans in the face unless he was acting. But it looked pretty real to me.
But not even that. Like, you ever have, like, I mean, I know I'll just confess, and I know it's true. Like, you just all of a sudden get mad at your girlfriend or your brother or a cousin or a nephew or whatever it is. And it's like, and you get really angry, and it's like, it kind of comes out of nowhere. It might come in the middle, and it might be something so small. And then, and you wonder where it comes from, and it's like, oh. And then it passes, and it's like, wow, I was such an idiot. Why did I do that? I think
definitely
demonic.
I've come in contact with perfect strangers, and they were extremely mean to me, and I was extremely mean back out of nowhere, or maybe even I started it. And I do think there are cases of influencing where you can change your personality or your emotions. Humans are probably easy to manipulate.
Most humans are.
Right. Just instill some fear, you know what I mean? And whatever. Because I think, part of the demon thing is that one of the attributes is that they feed off of fear, I think, or feed off of negativity.
Right.
In all of its manifestations, whether it's tragedies or whatever happened on the land hundreds and thousands of years ago, or whatever. But most likely, like, this fear has something to do with it. Like, so if they can, I've been listening to certain exorcists and stuff that say, oh, they can plant a memory, you know, and like you can remember something completely different than how it really actually happened, and that can lead you down a road of obsession and things like that. So you really got to watch it. I think meditation in the proper way, if you're, you know, focusing on good things, like, you know, can help with that, because like, you know, you can notice that these emotional things come at you. You know, your spiritual life should never be based on just emotional things. It should be based on reason and logic as well. You know, that's kind of a side topic. Sorry, but yeah.
No, one time I was in public and someone hurled an insult at me, and there was like a wave. There was like a spiritual wave bombarding me to want to hurl another insult back in
Whoa.
response. And I decided to just keep my mouth shut and stand there and say nothing. And for like a minute straight, it felt like I was being hit physically with some spiritual energy. And it passed, but it was really tempting to start a fight or to yell something back. So perhaps that was a spiritual moment of
Yeah.
I can tell you another instance. Okay, one time I walked into Jack in the Box, and this was a good 10 years ago. And I saw a guy and a girl, and the girl from behind looked like a girl that I knew very well. But we kind of weren't friends anymore, right? So I was like, my first reaction was, oh no, I don't want them to see me here, right? And I just thought that in my head. I just walked in very slow and casually behind them, but I thought in my head really loud, is that person? Oh no, I don't want them to see me here. I was 100% in my head. Both of them turned around as if I yelled at the top of my lungs and stared at me.
Whoa.
And then they turned back as if they heard my thoughts. It was very
wow.
bizarre. Has that ever happened to you, where you projected telepathically, like, oh no, I don't want them to see me, but I was just standing very normal, waiting in my line to get a burger.
All the time. That happens all the time. And traffic, I'll notice that, like, you know, just now, like, you know, I'm like, oh God, it's so and so. You know, my boss from work is falling, you know, or whatever, and I'm behind her, and it's like, as soon as I think that, hi, you know, or something, or waves at me or whatever. I mean, it was somebody I knew for sure, but no, but it happens all the time. There's a doctor, Rupert Sheldrake, out there, who does work on morphogenetic fields, which is about, you know, kind of like genetic memory and why flowers grow into the same form, why human beings pretty much grow with limbs and, you know, similar. Anyway, that's another topic. But he did a research, and I was a research assistant for him. Anyone could be a research assistant for him at this point. But what you had to gather data on was we would put 20 people in a room, or something, like 10, 20 people to 20 people. And we would have someone up front completely turned around so they couldn't see the other people. And we would have them either stare at them. All 20 people would stare at this person and like project thoughts of, we didn't really care about the projection of thoughts, but like, I'm looking at you or whatever, without saying it, of course. But these people would just stare at this person, or they would, and the person wouldn't know, and that person would have to guess whether they were being stared at or not. And statistically, it was incredible. It was something like 80%, which is ridiculous accuracy, which is like on a statistical level above 50% is incredible. Or you know, so he did a whole book on that, I think, called the sense of being stared at. So there is some evidence. These are very cheap ways to study these phenomena. But yeah, I mean, I've had things where you just think something, and but I mean, not where it's like someone, they think I yelled it or something like that, but you know, but that's interesting.
Oh, but my story wasn't her. It was a different girl. So it wasn't her.
Right.
What I was focusing on is they heard me without me saying anything. Right. That was unusual to me. And maybe it's happened on some smaller level, but never like that ever again.
Yeah, it's intuitive. I think we all have those abilities, but maybe I don't know. Do you think like some people have like getting back to the demons thing and how they can control your mind? Like, do some people not have as much of an intuitive ability? And that makes them more susceptible, maybe to
Well, I mean,
yeah,
I think everyone is created with the potential to be equal,
hmm,
Mhm.
spiritually, protection wise, just having an internal compass for truth. But somewhere along the line, Joe Rogan has talked about this. Some people go down the rabbit hole and they want to believe in a conspiracy, perhaps, so much that they'll disregard very basic logic and reason. So I don't know. It really depends. I mean, I do think people that watch the tabloid news, specifically
yeah.
like a
I
tabloid
was gonna
channel,
say
all day and night, they
yeah.
probably are wearing down their spiritual defenses. It's hard to say,
Yeah,
you know?
like I can't trust the mainstream news at all. I can't bear to even look at those people because like their facial expressions just turn me off. If you look in their eyes, it just turns me off. It's just a bad feeling. Like they're not sincere or they're conniving and so yeah, I don't expose myself to that anymore. But other people just gobble it up and it's not about necessarily the content, but they trust people on television who
Hmm.
I can just take one look at and be like, this is not someone you should be trusting. Like,
Well, the weathermen especially, I can tell you because listen, when I had to drive from Philadelphia to Boston with the rental car because they were like, "Oh, canceled." I would get on the flight and would say, "Your flight is now canceled,"
right, yeah,
and your connecting flight to Boston. And it was just like my flights were canceled 6 times. Okay,
oh wow,
and it's basically one flight. You know, it's a Santa Barbara, which is a beautiful airport, uh, to Phoenix, and then Phoenix to Boston, easy.
right,
But they were canceling, and but there, I noticed that there would be like one flight in, and I'm like, well, what about that flight? You know,
yeah,
and that was reserved for people who paid like 4 times the amount of money to fly it, and they just lied and all that stuff.
yeah,
But the weather wasn't that bad. I drove all through Philadelphia, through New York City, through Connecticut, Rhode Island, Boston. It was some a tiny dusting but I've flown out of like storms before, you know, and like really bad weather. And it was nothing. It was cold, but like, listen, like that's I don't know. It just feels like it was. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why where I was going with
Oh,
that.
okay. Well, people that might be more susceptible, I think, have been made fun of in two movies in particular. In Clockwork Orange, the parents. You know
Mm.
how the parents hated their son when the newspaper said something bad about their son? And then they loved their son when the newspaper said,
Oh
"Oh, yeah,
yeah.
oh, poor him, poor Alex. The
right,
government took advantage of him." So the opinion of his parents was solely because of what they read in the papers in the mainstream
Wow, it's
media.
true.
So
hmm,
Kubrick definitely subtly put that in there. And I'm sure all of us know someone whose opinion is 100% based on what they read.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
but here's another example. In the movie Time Bandits, the parents of the boy who time travels, the parents of the boy's opinion is 100% based on the television that they're watching.
Yep.
hmm,
If you watch that movie, you'll see the parents are zombies to the TV. They
Oh.
almost don't even know their son exists. They're just
wow,
staring at the TV the whole time. Like he
Mm.
goes on a huge adventure in time. He comes back and the parents could care less and they were just watching TV the whole time.
Yeah. Same thing with Tim Heidegger's character, and he was in he did like a little cameo in Fantastic Four, and he
Mhm.
played the father of Reed Richards, and he was just watching TV the whole time, you know, and just shut up, you know. But yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, we all have no parents like that or have parents like that, and it's an unfortunate thing, you know. But yeah, it is weird. Like it's like I remember my personal experience, I guess. My mom watches a lot of television, Ghost Hunters and Ghost Adventures and all those shows, like every season, because and but she also watches like reality shows like Intervention. And I remember like she would call me up and say, Brandon, I know you have a problem. I know there's a problem with you. like, how long? Tell me, how long have you ever done meth? And it's like, no,
Whoa,
like
crazy.
crazy. Yeah, right. She talk about susceptible people. And
Yeah.
then I would notice that, like, say it was a reality show where it was like, well, I'm not gonna do this, and it's totally scripted, and they play off of that. And then the mom's like, well, you are gonna do that, and it's like, well, now we have a family thing, and we have to talk about it. Like, she'll see that, and she'll be like, and then act it out. And
Hmm.
it's very odd. It's very odd. People take their social cues and how they're supposed to act from the television, and
Yeah.
I don't. I definitely don't. Even though there's some good TV out there, but yeah.
Yeah. I haven't had a television in some years now. Like more, I haven't really watched TV, and well, I don't have a TV here. So, but when I used to live with my dad and some of my family, we had a television. I didn't get the television, but there was a television there, so I would sometimes watch it. But I couldn't take it too seriously. Couldn't take it too seriously.
Yeah, I think the
generation,
younger generation are
Yeah.
drifting away from TV and newspapers, so we don't get any of our information from TV and newspapers. Like the latest,
yeah.
the latest show,
The older. You mean the younger people or older people?
just 30 years and younger.
Yeah.
We pretty much. The latest show I'm watching is called Future Man. Have you heard of Future Man?
No.
I haven't watched it yet. It looks good.
It's a dumb time travel comedy, but it's hilarious. And Seth Rogen to Hulu, and who gets Hulu, right? But I'm watching it. It's pretty funny. It's like Back to the Future meets Cop meets some other concoction. It's pretty funny. It's a pretty funny time travel comedy. I'm a big fan of time travel. That's the only reason I investigated John Teeter, some dude that said he was a time traveler, because I'm interested in the subject. I never really did a full book review of Back to the Future, the book. I never did a full book review. I am one of these days, but every time I do talk about it, I don't know. Every time I talk about it on Twitter, people are like, who cares? Who cares about the book in okay, it's 1940. I always say the wrong date. It's 1947. This book came out in 1947. There's no such thing as a second edition. So every book in existence is the first edition because it never was popular. I think personally it was kind of blacklisted, because he mentions a World War II criminal a couple times, but this was 1947 when he was in the newspapers, so it's a relevant subject at the time. And I looked at his Wikipedia. I really researched the guy. His name is Meburn Stannyland. And this is just dust flying around. I can see this dust flying around. It's not ghosts.
I didn't see it.
But Meburn Stannyland, clearly Robert Zemeckis picked up this book. Back to the Future, huh? And there's two main characters in the book. Two guys. A professor type character and a time traveler type guy. The book kind of shows them being the same age, but that is one of the only huge differences between the movie Back to the Future, except the time machine was different. The time machine in this book looks like a Frankenstein table where you lay down. And the lever is clearly inspired by H.G. Wells' lever in the book The Time Machine. So the book Time Machine came out before this, obviously. This is an inspiration from Time Machine, meaning Back to the Future, the movie, is inspired by Time Machine through this, but you know, it's an interesting book. This book is from London. The guy's British. He goes to the dystopian future where everyone has to wait in a food line to get food. Everyone. And you have to have almost like from I can't remember the name of that British movie, but where they, I can't remember the name of it.
What do they do?
It's a space movie with dolphins. You know, it's that space dolphin.
Oh! Thanks for the fish. Douglas Adams, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah, in that movie, they go to a planet with aliens. They go to a planet with like, you have to get an approval document to get an approval document to get an approval document. Like tons of red tape and paperwork. Yeah. And apparently that's a spoof on the British culture, but I didn't get it because I didn't know that. But this guy definitely spoofs that in this book. He goes to the dystopian future. To get a food ticket, you need to get an approval ticket to get an approval to get an approval. And that part was kind of reminiscent of that. And it takes him days to get a food ticket, and he might starve to death. Because he's from the past. He's from the past, and he goes to the distant future, and he doesn't have any identity because they don't know who he is. And he's running from time cops the whole book. And so it's definitely not the same as Back to the Future. But Robert Zemeckis definitely read this book. But there's a scene where there's a country club prison where anyone can leave whenever they want, or maybe they can't, but I think they have numbers, and it's very similar to The Prisoner.
Oh, wow.
So I think Patrick McGoohan read this book because he's British. This book, published in London, very obscure. He probably read it. Maybe that part inspired The Prisoner. So it inspired two of my favorite things, The Prisoner and Back to the Future.
Wow.
But I got to do a review on that. I'm a huge fan of time travel for some reason. But, I have this watch.
I love that watch. I love that watch.
It's off because
I didn't think it was real. I thought you made it at first, and then you're like, no, it's a real watch.
It has a countdown timer.
That's awesome.
And I might be going to the airport, so I'm not going to wear it. It looks like a bomb detonator.
It does.
I just walk into the airport with this.
Oh God, I'm strapped with this watch.
But I want to bring it, so I'm going to put it in my luggage.
Put it in your luggage, yeah. It's carry on some. It'll be fine. That's crazy though. That's funny. What else? Let's ask. I see Sam Shadow is in the audience, and I want to give a shout out to Sam. Sam did a live stream with myself and Positive Momentum. I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, and it was a 5-hour live stream. And I invited John and stuff, but I think you were working, John. So, but yeah, it was interesting. Sam has some really interesting opinions on demonic entities, and slightly different from maybe certain people. But he's a humble guy. He's a humble guy anyway, which is very rare to see, and with like magicians and people who practice sort of things like that. And he uses spirit boxes. I've used a spirit box with him one time, and he had to turn it off because there was a presence in his room.
Whoa.
Yeah, I mean, I don't ever do that, and I will probably won't ever do it again. But 2 days ago, yeah, we got into some deep stuff. He says, okay, yeah. But yeah, he has he's read a lot of occult books. Very well versed for his age, in practice, and like the history of like the Golden Dawn and this and that. So check out his channel. He has some really interesting things, and kind of went all over the place. I was doing a review of this guy, Lord Josh Allen. in his Taoist weather magic documentary, which it's pretty cool actually. And I only got like maybe a minute into it. Sam is in that documentary, and it's all about Zhuge Liang, this ancient Chinese master general, politician / emperor who would defeat armies. He said there were two types of armies. There's the armies, with the tanks and the horses and the boots on the ground and all that. And then your other army is the moon, the stars, the river, the mountains, the this, the that, your environment, basically. And Taoist weather magic is very close to like indigenous. We were talking about this. So it's very close to like indigenous religion or myth, religions, basically, throughout the world, where you have to really pay attention to the very slight noises in the woods, or how the leaves bend, or how a tree bends, or how the grass is compressed, or how what way the wind is blowing. If a Sam can correct me on this, but like if a bird flies to the west and then takes a nosedive, it's a bad omen. But if it keeps going to the west, things like that.
Reminding me a bit of Sun Tzu's Art of War. A little
exactly.
Bit.
Yeah,
Have you read that book?
Yeah, I've read that. That's a great book.
I thought it was pretty cool. Yeah.
No, that book is amazing.
He mentions about, like Brandon was mentioning, the birds, and I guess you guys remember in that book there's a part where he's like, if you see birds suddenly flying up out of the forest, like that means there's an army approaching through there. And I just thought it's a really cool. Well, I mean, you guys have read it, so I don't know. But I didn't.
No, my favorite part is his strategies on how to kill your enemy and disarm them.
Yeah.
He said, if you walk up to your enemy laughing, joking, ha ha ha, they will mirror you.
Right.
And as they laugh too, you kill them.
Yeah, psychological stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
My favorite lesson of his, the one that hit home to me the most, was to like he's like, basically be very active. Send patrols to point A, to point C. Recall your patrols, like parade your just be very active, doing all these different things, and then suddenly just attack. Like just like your enemy's been watching you, getting habituated to you doing all these things, and you start to habituate your enemy, and then basically be completely unpredictable. Never.
Yeah, that's right.
Never be predictable. Always.
Well, except for one thing I will just add, that which I always use as a lesson in the art of war.
Yeah.
Which is, he says, leave one opening for the enemy. Leave an opening for the enemy.
Right, yeah.
So therefore, that they're like, if you leave one doorway open, they're all going to come through there.
Yeah.
Stuff like that, and that you can apply that. That was one of John Lennon's favorite books too. But I'm going to say, Sam says Zhuge Liang helped write the follow-up, Understanding the Art of War. So it was a commentary on the Art of War. So you spot on with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I heard that book is a top seller among Japanese businessmen that use it in business. Yeah.
Yep.
So you can apply it.
It's like 80 paragraphs, the whole book.
Yeah, it's very short.
You could read it in an afternoon. Yeah. But it's good information. Yeah.
That the birds sign reminds me of the book The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho.
Yeah, I did read that book. I don't remember it very well. I did read it though.
Well, my favorite part of the book is when he sees the eagles flying in a certain direction, and he reads it and understands what it means.
Right.
Oh, wow.
So I think you're seeking signs, you're not always going to find something, but sometimes signs will pop out and you're supposed to pay attention. And you can get information from tiny subtle things. And it might mean something different to you than it means to someone else, but I have definitely had signs and I read them correctly, and then 2 weeks later it happened. So, you know, it depends. You know, it can happen. It wasn't birds. What happened to me was more specific and kind of personal, but
Right.
it came true what I predicted based on what it was. And so, you know, definitely signs. I think people that are really hard to read the signs, maybe me. Like I got a fortune cookie. This is a different incident, but I got a fortune cookie once that said something that happened like 2 weeks later.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if you have to rely on a fortune cookie you're probably pretty dense. The universe really is like having to tell you specifically. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
But
So it got, yeah.
so I did invite Sam Shadow, but maybe he can't make
Oh,
it
really?
this time. Maybe
Sam, you
he
want to come on?
maybe he can't make it this time. We're closer to the end. It's no big deal. He can join us next time.
Yeah. He was great. He's a lot of information, like lots of different types of information that I've never. I mean, for his age, I think he's like 24 or something like that. Really interesting, you know. He has quite the library, you know, and a lot of different, you know, I've noticed like a lot of different information that correlates with like information that you talk about, John, and on your channel with the attributes of demons and how they act and behave and things. And so you should come on. Hopefully you will. If not, next time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Ghost Adventures. I just want to talk about that really quickly. See, I'm new. I'm pretty new. Okay, looks like someone joined us.
The great Lord Josh Allen is here. Unbelievable. Welcome.
Wow.
We're just talking about your Jubileon.
Good evening, guys. How are you?
Great.
Good.
I've actually just come inside. I've been on the altar of the 7 stars outside, and I've been recording for part 2 of the Weather Magic documentary. It's wonderful.
Oh,
I got that buzz. I get a buzz from practicing magic like people do from taking drugs. And it's fantastic. I love it. I'm the kind of person, I like to get psyched up rather than mellow. I don't know why. I just prefer to be amped up all the time, intense, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I've always liked that. So where are you guys from? Are you all in the States?
I'm in Canada, Toronto.
Oh, I see. Wonderful. Good air quality down there as well.
Well,
I would love to go up there and actually do some weather magic in different countries. One of my big goals, my lifetime goal, is to actually help Yemen because they're struggling with a lot of starvation and poverty. And I think if I could try to procure some rain over there, I might be able to help out. You know, sort of cultivate the soil a little bit using weather magic.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I guess Yemen's got a lot of problems.
I think they're number 1 on the list of starvation rates, I believe, last time I checked. Yeah, I made a whole video on that, and people were very much against it. They were saying to me, Lord Josh, do not interfere with a country that's already suffering because you might make it worse. And of course, that is a possibility. That is something I worry about. If I was to get involved, would I actually unintentionally, you know, cause a problem there? I wouldn't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that reminds me of Art Bell. Art Bell had an experiment where his whole audience focused on, I think he was UFOs, but there was also a previous one on weather. I think trying to make it rain was one of the experiments. Before Art Bell took credit for the Phoenix Lights. Before that, it was a rain experiment. And I can't remember if he was successful or not, but I remember Art Bell saying, we don't know if it's taking rain away from somewhere else, but if someplace needs rain, go ahead and try to make it rain.
I mean, there is the argument as well when it comes to weather magic, borrowing versus creating. You know, if you're a magician who isn't as adept, then you can try borrowing something that already exists in another location, but you must return it. That's the rule. Whatever you borrow must be returned at some point. I typically like to create whatever I, you know, manifest. I think that when you borrow something, you owe it back, and I don't like that hanging over me. Kind of like a debt. I don't like it.
Right.
Yeah, makes
We
sense.
were just talking about Xu Liang, who
Yes, Kong Ming. Yeah.
unbelievable information there, and how he's in Pokemon, and you see him in all
Yeah, he
kinds of
is. He's in,
places.
I think he's in Overwatch now. He's
Oh,
actually in
really?
it, and they call him Zhuge Liang in Overwatch.
No way.
Yeah.
No kidding. Oh, wow. How I'm not surprised now.
It
But
kind
we
of
were
makes me wonder as well. Like, I wonder
Yeah.
if his people in the temple actually appreciate him being in pop culture. I don't know.
you gotta wonder. I don't know either. You know, but we were saying, you know, how you said in the documentary that one of the omens is that if the birds are flying west and then take a dramatic dive, I think it is.
Yeah, if it's a blackbird, especially.
Blackbird.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were trying
When
to
you're
see,
looking out for omens, you've got to be very careful. I mean, it depends, I suppose, what location you're in, because obviously different geography, different places. But where I live, I'm pretty much accustomed to the omens here now, and I know what I'm looking for. So where you are, it could be slightly different. You know, when you look at something in nature and you get a bad feeling and you can't understand why, and then something happens to you about, you know, a week later, and you think that was a sign. I didn't pay attention to it because I didn't know what it was saying to me. Exactly. So omens, really, it's a hidden language, I think.
But yeah, as you said in the documentary, you have to still the storm in your mind and your body.
Yeah.
And
well,
your
before
spirit.
you can ascend the 7-star altar, you've got to tame the storms of your own psyche. Absolutely. I mean, you know, if you're struggling with mental illness or depression, taking that to the sacred zone is a bad idea, because spirits will take advantage of that and exploit it. So you've got to have everything sorted out in your, you know, private life before you can go out onto that altar. And I'm not secretive by any means. I get, you know, constant emails from people saying you shouldn't record your rituals because that puts away the spirits, that pisses them off. That's nonsense. This comes from people who cannot successfully practice magic, in my opinion. What I do, I record it. If it works, I put it out. If it doesn't, I'll write about it on my blog.
Yeah.
So I think that there's always opportunities to create something, even if the what you're doing wasn't successful. It could be in a different way. You know, it could be a warning to some people. So,
you know, one of the videos that was fascinating to me, Lord Josh, is that you went out into the woods near your house and around your house where you...
That was my private peach garden, yeah.
Okay, where you willingly get possessed by certain demons of the forest, that where there was a medieval plague doctor or something like this.
That's right.
And you had to do some sort of banishing ritual. And, you know,
worked.
that's interesting.
I never did a follow-up, but it actually worked.
I was going to ask, okay, yeah, did it work? Okay.
You know my intro song that I use by Seal, Padded Cell, there's a million different people living inside of me.
Oh, is that Seal? Okay.
That's Seal. Yeah. And I use that because there is really a million different spirits living inside of me.
Right, right.
And I think other people could use that as mental illness. They could use that as split personality. But I think it really is wonderful for the magician who really likes to evoke things and actually get really up close and personal with a lot of deities. And I do. I don't really draw a line as to what comes through. Well, nothing's hurt me so far, and I've been doing it now for about 11 years.
Right. So, and you said, you know, you don't kneel to these entities, that you're
I do. I kneel to Kong Ming, and I kneel to Lamat. I recognize those as my superiors.
Right.
And I also kneel to the tradition more than anything, not necessarily the deities, because the tradition is older than the deities. So, for instance, Taoist weather magic, I will kneel to that because that is greater than me. It's existed a lot longer than I have, and I don't think any magician can ever look at that and say, I'm better than this system of magic, because you're not. If you go in thinking that, you're going to get a rude awakening. So I try to go in very humble. And I'm not sure if I'm really a humble guy in my private life. I'm quite ostentatious. I'm quite flamboyant. I like to spend a lot of money on nice things. And
that's okay.
But when it comes to rituals, all of that goes out the window, and I loosen my hair. I have bare feet, and I go out and I become this like hermit, this Taoist hermit, and it's wonderful.
Yeah. I mean,
people might say that's like a contrast between two separate lives where, you know, on one side you like to spend money and you like to enjoy yourself. On another side, you're very strict about your spirituality. And I think like yin and yang, they can coexist together, but in moderation, in balance, you know. And that's what I try to do.
You do, and you seem to be doing it really well, you know. So
well, I hope so. I mean, I've got some terrible health issues, though. That's no secret. I really do suffer with life-threatening conditions. I mean, 6 months ago, I was diagnosed with hypophosphatemia, which is the severely low phosphate in the blood. And if it goes too low, you can go into cardiac arrest. And I almost stopped breathing the very first time it happened. And they had to incubate me and everything. It was absolutely horrendous. And I remember the worst part of it was I could not take my feathered fan with me to the hospital. And I remember laying in the hospital bed thinking, if I die now, I'm not going to have any protection whatsoever. It's the first time I've been separated from my feathered fan for God knows how long. That's why I was kicked out of school, you know. Back in 2007, I refused to go to school without it. And they kicked me out. I wouldn't conform. I don't conform. No way. Never. Never. I hate conformity.
What's the name of that fan? I forget the name of it.
The Kong Ming fan. Yeah, it's named after him.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, there's that video where the doorbell rings. And
Chancellor. You talk about Chancellor.
Oh, Chancellor,
yes.
That's the name.
Yes, that was a good one. The Peach Garden Oath. That's a great song too, isn't it? Wonderful song.
Hey, Sam Shadow here.
Shadow.
Hey, Sam. Good to see you.
Always a pleasure, Josh. Brandon gave me the invite, and then once I saw you jump in, I was like, oh, shit, now I have to jump on.
Yeah, good stuff. You got 4 bolts of lightning behind you. Is that 4 bolts? Am I looking at that right?
Ooh, it's a shide, which is it's from Shinto, and the way I'm using it right here, it's actually, I put it above my altar, and it's supposed to be like a gateway to the spirit world. Right. And whenever I do rituals on this altar, one of the way I can kind of see spirit energy coming in, whether chi or kami or whatever they are, this will actually move. But
wow, excellent!
It's very fascinating.
Awesome.
Yeah, I could see something subtle like that be movable by the spirits. That's interesting.
Yeah, Sam has some really interesting. I remember one of the things he showed me is that a simple pendulum. If you hold up. Sam, maybe you have something, but if you hold up just something like a little string, it will just move on its own, counterclock, on demand, and that was creepy. That was pretty creepy to me. That was interesting. I was I mean,
it can get creepy. You know what I mean? I think with me, I'm used to a lot of this scary stuff, but it still creeps me out. Like I'll wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat, thinking, "What is that noise? What have I done this time?" You know?
Yeah, I've had those scares myself. I just want to say real quick, thank you for the invite, John, and congratulations on the 10K. You totally earned it, man.
Yeah.
Thank you, man.
Brilliant. Wonderful.
Thank you very much.
10,000. Yeah, that's good.
All of you are welcome to contribute, if you would like, to the Attributes of Demons Part 2 documentary. Your thoughts, positive, negative, neutral. There's someone from Ireland. They see it as a positive thing. So I'm gonna have all different viewpoints, and if you want to submit a clip or even now talk about your thoughts on demons, but I could tell you one story. You know, I set up these paper, black and white, for my spirit experiment, which featured this REM pod, and I put it back there, but I spent a month, cutting these papers out. And I think the most success I had spirit-wise was the spirit watched me make this set. And it even before I was done, it was knocking on my lamp. It was getting ready. It definitely set off this device a good 3 times intelligently, I would say. And then I wanted to do a live stream to prove I'm not faking it.
Right.
And it showed up 2 days before the live stream. It picked up my wires. Now I can grab my wires just to show you what it looked like. I have a huge box of wires. I bought the white ones for my Korg setup just so I can use these little Korg devices. I wanted to play it.
Hell yeah.
I wanted to play the drums at the same time I play the keyboards. And to do so, you need a bunch of wires. So I bought a crud load of wires, mostly the white ones. I have a second box. And I had them on my desk. And this spirit It's the only time I've ever seen levitation. It literally picked up, it was mostly the white ones, I have a second box full of white ones. It went like this and picked it up about this high.
Oh, shit.
Now, I looked behind my laptop. I was watching Netflix at the time. And I looked and I saw this. I didn't know it was levitating at the time. I thought, oh, that's kind of weird. My wires in a pile, which seems impossible. And then I watched it do this. And then it banged against my desk. That's the first time I've ever seen levitation. And it was about 10 months ago.
Wow.
Whoa.
It was 2 days before the live stream. I got up, most definitely. It touched my objects. It touched my objects in my room very subtly. It went like this, but I could hear it. And then it stepped on the wires on my floor, and I heard the very faint sound of feet on this wires. It sounded like very subtle. You could barely hear it, but I could see it. So I walked up to it, and I have to admit, I did tell it in 2 days there's a live stream.
You did.
Before I said, this is my room, this is my domain.
Okay.
This is my messy room. These are my stupid wires. I did say in 2 days there's a live stream. I told it, it's kind of against my own personal belief to make any contract with a spirit. That's just my perspective. But I said in 2 days, if you want to set the devices off, that's your free will. And it took off, noticing that I wasn't scared of it. And it wasn't here for the live stream. The live stream was a total failure. If I was faking, I would have rigged something.
Right, of course.
You can watch that 4-hour live stream of me wondering why isn't it showing up. I was dumbstruck for 4 hours straight. I felt like an idiot.
No. Because you kept on recording, and then later on that night, something happened, if I'm not mistaken.
Like 48 hours later, I moved everything into that corner, and I filmed it for while I slept for 5 hours. And it woke me up at 8 a.m., something like that. Sunday morning, at 8 a.m., it started doing it. And I pulled out all these recorders, and I said, talk into this. And I have a really low success rate with voices. Pretty much the only voice success I had was at that tunnel in Tucson, Arizona.
Crazy.
The haunted tunnel. And I've never had those voices ever since. So I will go back to that haunted tunnel, but there were at least 2 homeless people there, and I don't want to get in a bum fight. I don't want I don't want to disrespect their home. That's their little cave. I don't want to disrespect it. I don't want to gawk and all those YouTube channels that make fun of homeless people.
Yeah, it's not cool.
Here's $100. And then,
exactly. Yeah, it's all staged as well. I don't like that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
no, it's very disrespectful.
Yeah, so that place is haunted, and someone left a comment, how come the hobos aren't worried about the ghosts? They're just worried about shelter over their head. A ghost, they could care less. They're withstanding more than ghosts. They're withstanding horrific, where's their next meal going to come from? They're not worried about ghosts at that point.
What was the sigil that was right at the beginning, right around where you heard the EVP? There was some sort of marking, some sort of symbol, demarcation line, I feel like, in that video. I got to go recheck it out, but
I don't know.
Yeah. But don't do rituals in your house. That's another point which Lord Josh Allen was talking about, like why he goes into the woods, because they follow him home. And
they do.
That's why, John, I think you stopped doing these experiments.
I stopped doing the corners of rooms when the ghost didn't show up for the live stream. I was like, if it's not going to show up in the middle of the night, I do have a cold sweat like Lord Josh occasionally, because occasionally I hear footsteps in my room. But the last time I heard footsteps was 10 months ago when it picked up the wires. So it's not every day. It's not every night. But,
they sound kind of immature to me, a little juvenile somewhat.
I mean, it's hard to understand their perspective. It's hard to see.
Have you guys heard of demonic whirlwinds before? Anyone here heard of that?
No, but I'd like to.
No.
Well, go back a couple of years. I made a YouTube video on this, actually. And I was out in my 7-star altar, and I was doing a wind ritual. And all of a sudden, I started to see what I thought was smoke from a fire. And it was this black, thick, heavy smoke right behind a really big tree in my garden. And I thought some power lines had gone down, and I thought something had lit on fire. What it was this twister, and it was manifesting, and it was growing thicker and darker, and it had this disgusting smell of sulfur in the air. And if you read Professor Jerry Allen Johnson's Taoist Weather, Magic, and Feng Shui book, he actually says that if you smell sulfur and see a black mist, that is a sign of a demonic whirlwind. And it came closer to me, closer to me. And I wanted to run away. I was so scared that my hands and feet went numb. And I was having like a full-on anxiety attack on the altar. I wasn't prepared for this at all. But I remembered what the text said. They said, do not run away when you see this. Try to face it, try to quell it and calm it down. And that's what I did. I soothed the storm, but I've got pictures of my house. The tiles and bricks on the roof all came off. A wing mirror on my car got smashed, and some of my plants were totally ripped out of the ground. And I got pictures of this on Twitter. And I was thinking, oh my God, I could have been killed. And all the debris from the top of my house hit my altar, but none of it fell inside of my magic circle. So all of the debris fell perfectly outside of the yin-yang circle. And I was so lucky. Had I left that circle to go back into the house, something would have fallen on me and I probably would be in hospital. So that was a huge eye-opener for me. And I made a whole video on it and showed the pictures. So check that out if you want to.
Cool.
Oh my God.
Demonic whirlwind. Yes, very dangerous.
Demonic whirlwind. Wow.
Look that up. I've heard the sulfur thing. I've personally never smelled sulfur.
Right.
But I did smell a putrid moss/BO. It kind of smelled like a damp cave/BO.
Mm-hmm.
And it was definitely a demonic entity because it smelled like someone just got out of the shower, but they just took a shower in the sewer. It smelled really bad. And so I thought someone was home. And this was me renting a room. It was after the poltergeist room. For 2 months, I moved into a different room for $500 a month. And I thought it was the owners. So I was just getting a drink in the fridge. I went to the fridge. I smelled this putrid smell. I've never smelled it before. And people have even equated it to what a Bigfoot smells like. But anyway.
Wow.
I smelled it. I thought someone just got out of the shower and took a huge dump. I don't know. It was disgusting. It was a disgusting smell. So I literally went to the shower. No one was in the house. The shower was empty. The entire house was empty. So I went back to my room and the smell followed me. And then I went back into the hallway and the smell was in the hallway. And then about a week later, the owners complained that I was the source of the smell when I wasn't. Wow. It was literally a demonic smell. Right. And I said, come into my room. I use air fresheners. I tidy the place up. I don't emit this smell. Maybe it's coming from the other roommate. The other roommate smoked marijuana legally because they had a marijuana license. But I thought they should probably smoke in the backyard because smoking in someone's house you're renting.
Yeah, out of respect.
Maybe smoke in the backyard, whether you have a license or not. So it didn't smell anything like marijuana, but I told them maybe it's coming from her, but I didn't want to tell them maybe it's a demon. They wouldn't buy that story. But
maybe they would, because didn't they have like potpourri all around even before you were in there?
Well, the lady was obsessed with potpourri. She had bowls of potpourri everywhere. So I think the demon targeted the house with the smell because of the owner lady's obsession with potpourri, like a counterbalance thing. It was strange. But when I moved out, I did get my deposit back, and she said, "Oh, the room smells great. It never smelled bad.
On.
The room never smelled bad." So it was first time and last time I've ever smelled what I thought was a demon, because the smell followed me down the hall, and it smelled like when you walk right behind someone with a lot of perfume, like a real person's. I could almost feel the air of the entity. It was pretty strange.
Wow.
Oh man. You know, it's odd. I actually haven't experienced the smell, but I can comment on it a little bit. Well, I won't tell the whole story because it's very long and I don't want to hog the camera or anything, but
yeah, you can tell the whole story. You can tell the whole story.
The one and only, I'll still keep it short because there's other shit I want to talk about too, but the one and only time I actually saw a demon, and it really wasn't just one. I think they were multiple lesser spirits manifest visibly. You know, no mirror, no mental channeling, anything like that. They did look very much like Josh had described. They were a black smoke,
Yes.
and they were about this big. It kind of looked like this very thick black smoke. It never really had any specific shape. It kept changing shape. And what it was is late summer 2017, or it might have been 2016. It was 2017. Anyway, I was working with Ball out of the Goetia, and the ritual had already been over by about 3 days, right? So it wasn't even in a ritual context, but I kept seeing all week long, like, I would see something black out of the corner of my eye, and I would turn, and it would be gone. And I kind of wrote it off at first. I was like, oh, well, it could have been a shadow, or it could have been my cat, because I own a black cat. I own 2 now, actually. But, you know, I kept writing it off, but I still paid attention, because sometimes weird shit can happen when you work with Goetia. And one day I was doing a private Skype call with my girlfriend at the time, and I looked up, and there it was. Like, it didn't move or anything, like it was just floating in midair. Whoa. It was this black smoky thing, and this was where it got really crazy. And if people want to think I'm making it up, that is completely fine. Right. I know it sounds crazy as shit. I saw one, I saw another, and I saw another, and I saw about 100 of these things, and they were circling me almost like fish in a bowl.
Whoa!
And I didn't freak out. Like, it didn't really scare me so much, but it shook me up, just because I'd always heard these people like E.A. Coetting say, oh, summon demons to physical appearance. And I never believed it was true. I thought it was just a bunch of bullshit, you know, to sell his books or whatever. But this was very, very real. Very real. And I don't think it was Ball. What I think it was is, like, in the Goetia, whenever you look at any of these spirits, it'll be like, this is King so-and-so, a great lord of whatever, treasure or gold or this and that. He rules over a legion of 375 spirits. So whenever you summon him, you summon the legions that he governs over as well. And the only reason I didn't even banish, and I think the only reason I didn't at the time was because, even though it was pretty freaky, I didn't get a threatening presence from it. But it was very wild, man.
Wow.
But going back to the smell thing that John mentioned, whenever I did work with any of these entities, one of the things I would do when I drew out the sigil, as I'm drawing it out on the piece of paper, I'll be like, I call upon you, Lord so-and-so, great king of whatever. I call upon you as a friend with no bad smells, no bad energies. I want to work with you. I see you as my ally, da-da-da-da. I want you to help me accomplish whatever. So I try and be very respectful and call out to them, you know, in a way that, hey, let's work together, you know, da-da-da. And I think, you know, honestly, I've been working this for like the last 2 years, and this is the first time I've ever admitted it on camera. I never had a bad experience with it until late last December. There was one specific spirit, and I'd even use these spirits for things that were kind of self-serving or even a little bit baneful at times. Never had any bad, never had a bad experience, never faced any consequences. And I won't say who it's for, wink, wink, but there was a very special friend who I love very much that I was doing a healing ritual for. Good. And I was, yes, and I was calling on this spirit, and I was thinking, you know, I've done this stuff for money and sex and all this stuff. You know, where's the danger in a healing ritual? Oh, man. It fucked me up very bad mentally for about 3 weeks.
Careful with the bad language a little bit, but just...
I'm sorry, but it messed me up very bad for about 3 weeks straight. And, man, it actually got so bad that, like, I was starting to question whether I was becoming schizophrenic or something like that. And it did not go away until I took the 7-day hoodoo hyssop and rue bath and used that with the Psalms. And even then, it still took about a week or so after that, and I followed it up with a Reiki charged happiness candle to kind of balance things out. before it totally, like, and I'm just now, as of the last week or two, finally getting back to normal.
Getting over it, yeah.
Yes, but that was an eye-opener, man. That's when I kind of learned, like, you know, maybe I shouldn't be calling randomly on all these different spirits, like, oh, well, here's a spirit for this, here's a spirit for that.
Right.
Maybe I should just work with the ones that have either given me a positive experience in the past, or, you know, honestly, right now I'm just backing away from that altogether. I think I'm going to focus more on voodoo.
So would you
weather
consider
magic.
yourself a sorcerer then? Are you a person who petitions deities, immortals, and spirits to change reality?
Absolutely.
Right, I see. That's interesting. Okay. I would say I'm a hybrid between a magician and a sorcerer, because there are times where I will use the magical powers of Earth to cause change to the weather, aside from actually petitioning a certain god. You guys heard of Lei Gong, the Lord of Thunder, or the Duke of Thunder?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he actually goes around and reads the hearts of men, and he will punish them with white lightning. So every time you see a strike of white lightning, you can see that an evildoer is being punished. Now, if you see a strike of red lightning, that's a demon being punished. So I'm always looking outside of my window, and I'm seeing these little flashes, and I'm thinking, oh my God, karma's coming. Look at that. All these bad people out there. And Lei Gong is also the god who will go after Taoists who abuse the Taoist system of weather magic. So say, for example, if I wanted to summon a storm to take out somebody, he would come after me. So I have to be careful in that regard. And I do believe in him. I've actually seen him manifest before in my dreams. Never physically, but in my dreams. Quite a foul-looking god. Not very pleasant to look at.
He's even
unlike
a
lot of the other ones I work with. You know, Lamat, you actually answered this question so wonderfully, Sam, when you were asked, who is Captain Lamat? And you answered it brilliantly.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, I watched it. I haven't
appreciate
commented,
it.
I haven't had time, but I watched the stream. And I saw your review of my documentary. Thank you for doing that.
I haven't even got it like half, not even a quarter of the way. So
right, it was great though from what I saw. And you were going into that secret in the beginning. You know, the secret that's
John
lost.
had that dream. John had a dream about.
Yeah, I had a dream. I think it was about a year ago now. About a book. I was in what looked like a Tibetan Buddhist temple with dark wood floors, dark wood beams, dark wood ceilings. And I looked out the window, and it looked like I was 1,000 feet on the side of a mountain with snow. And the hallways, the walls, on the side of the walls were fine grain dust of different colors. It reminds me of that color ritual in India.
Right.
You know how they cover themselves with this different bright neon colored dust?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was very intricately placed on the edges of every side of the room. And I think it was placed there so they can see if a spirit sets footprints. They can see if a spirit enters the room. They're that in sync with detecting spirits. And I walked down the hallway and I saw a Buddhist monk in an orange robe with a bald head. And he was jumping up and down in the corner of the room. It made no sense. I have no idea why he was doing it. And then I turned and I saw a second Buddhist monk in an orange robe. And he basically pointed towards a little bookshelf. The bookshelf was tiny. It was like this big. And he said, he didn't say anything. He just pointed at it. And I looked, and there was about maybe 20 books, maybe 10 books. It was a very small book collection of antique books. I pulled one out, and the cover broke off. It literally deteriorated to an extent where I was turning it, and it broke it off in my hand. But I put it back, and it said Corners of Rooms. And it had a little logo. It had a little logo, which I will put on my book, Corners of Rooms. And I think it was a dream telling me, write this book. It's important.
Yeah.
That the ancients knew about this information, but it's been lost to time. So you writing it is going to restore something that was once lost. And
Brilliant.
I knew nothing about this story. Can you please tell the synchronicity with this?
Well, it's actually quite fascinating, because if you actually look back at Taoist weather magic, there was a time where in the Far East it was extremely popular and probably the most practiced form of occultism in the Far East at that time. But partially due to communism, China has actually turned down a lot of the traditional lineages in China. And what's happened is the true masters, the real masters, have either retired into the mountains or stopped practicing. And so because of the political agenda that's going on over there, it's been driven underground. So it's still practiced, of course, but it's been driven away.
And they've lost the mandate of heaven. Yeah,
exactly. And so people now will look at Taoist weather magic as a secret, but perhaps more importantly, they'll see it as baneful, evil, black magic. It should not be practiced. It's a secret that's best kept secret, and we want to keep it hidden. So there is an agenda. It's not just obscure. It's purposely hidden away. And I actually know people who will work around the clock to censor things, to blacklist things. When you put something online like a blog and you tag it Taoist weather magic, it will not show up.
Wow, no kidding.
There is all kinds of censorship, and it's all from China and the Communist Party.
Interesting.
So it's pretty crazy how deep it goes. Yeah, it's really crazy.
So
the synchronicity. What's that?
I'm sorry. Oh, keep going. I'll save that thought. Good.
Well, the synchronicity is that I think it's going through a period now, thanks to me, whereas I'm working to bring it back. And of course, I'm constantly getting emails from all these people saying, how dare you do this?
Right.
You know, you're a baneful practitioner. You shouldn't be doing this. And I've had people try to curse me. You name it, it's happening. And I'm actually wondering, you know, because my health up until about 6 months ago was perfectly fine. I've never had any major health issues whatsoever. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I'm really healthy. I exercise all the time. But all of a sudden, I got this out of nowhere, this life-threatening condition repeatedly.
Right.
And it seems to happen every time I go all out and start making these videos. And I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, this is kind of scary. So yeah, there are definitely people trying to shut me up. And the secret is that it's coming back now. It's not a secret anymore. I'm trying my best to bring it back. So it's still obscure, don't get me wrong, but I'm working on it.
There's definitely a magical resurgence.
Yeah.
Looking at the Islamic countries, how they ban magic. Magic is flourishing in those countries because it's banned. It's going underground.
Yeah.
And just what you said reminded me of Sadhguru, a mystic guru in India. He said they have a yogi phone system that yogis meditate and they can communicate. I think they leave their body and they communicate. And I don't know if that Tibetan Buddhist temple I went to was me leaving my body, but I can tell you when I first got there, I turned and I saw a dead relative.
Whoa.
And that dead relative was pointing at the corner of the room. And that's when I first noticed this colored dust in the corners. Very strange. But that's why I paid attention. If you ever see a dead relative in a dream, it's very important. And my dead relative didn't say a word, just like the Buddhist monk. He just pointed. I think when dead relatives communicate via dreams, a lot of the times they have to communicate with symbolism and not verbally. At least that's my experience.
Right.
Yeah, I believe that as well, actually. Yeah. I mean, one of my first initial spiritual experiences actually came in a dream. I was asleep and I saw my grandmother dying. She was alive at that point, and she sort of passed out, and it was so vivid. And I remember looking at it in this dream, and she was dying, and it was very painful. And I woke up and I felt extremely uneasy, like really sick, nauseated. About 2 weeks later, she died exactly as I saw in that dream. Exactly.
Wow.
Her face contorted. She had a stroke, and I remember seeing that in the dream. And I was thinking, oh my God, I remember seeing this. And then after she passed, I got another dream, and she came to me. And she was standing on a staircase. I'll never forget this. And the staircase was lit up from the back. And all I could see was her silhouette, but I knew it was her. And I asked her, I says, what is the afterlife like? And she says, it's beautiful. And I've never seen her again. So
wow.
I thought that's amazing. And that kind of gives me a theory. Perhaps your loved ones can communicate with you. There's a certain period where they can reach out. And after they've ascended to heaven, they can no longer reach out to you anymore. Just a thought, you know.
Yeah, John
I see
did
my
it.
dead mother a lot in dreams, and I don't read too much into it now, but maybe that's just because I had a close relationship with her. So
Right.
Yeah, my dad, he died about 3 months ago, and on November 2nd, which is Fête Gede, it's the Day of the Dead in Haitian voodoo, I did a very special ritual to sort of commemorate him, and I actually we had cremated him, which was one of his wishes, that he be cremated, because he was he never liked to spend a lot of money on things. He was very adamant about not giving all this money to these crooks in the funeral home. But that's a different topic. Anyway, after that, though, he has showed up several times in my dreams. He was even there were two that were really, really vivid. The second one, which I will share, and this was probably the most vivid one, is about a couple weeks ago. I had this dream. I was laying in bed, and usually every day, like sometimes I have problems waking up, like I have to force myself to get up. So what I'll do is, like, I'll get out of bed, I'll turn on the light, and then sometimes I'll go back and I'll lay down, and I might even go back to sleep for another hour or so.
Right.
And what had happened is I had done that, and when I had laid back down in my bed, I guess I had went to sleep, and I didn't even realize I was asleep, because in my dream, it was like I had never even gone to sleep. I was just laying in my bed, the lights on, everything looks normal. And then he walks in, he's like, "Hey, son, how are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm doing good. How are you?" And he comes and he sits at the foot of the bed, and I felt this pressure as he sat down. He's like, "So what are you going to do today?" I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm supposed to go to with my friend to the movies." He's like, "Well, tell me about this movie." And we start having this discussion, and I stop for a minute, and I realize, hey, wait a minute, you're dead. And he goes, "I love you, son." I said, "I love you too, Dad." And then I woke up, and this was the crazy part. When I opened my eyes, I could still feel the pressure at the end of the bed. And as I'm like just opening my eyes, I thought, oh, well, maybe my cat's sitting at the end of the bed or something. And I looked, there was no cat. But I could kind of see like the blankets.
Indentation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
wow.
Amazing.
And that was a very deep experience. But he's came by at least twice like that very vividly, and he even showed up last night in a dream, but it wasn't really so much about him. He was almost more of, let's say, a side character to the narrative, but without going into detail about it.
And would you tell people about this in your personal life? Would you mention that you've had this experience?
You know what? I actually did tell my mother about it, and she actually had a very similar experience. She had fallen asleep on the couch, and she said when she was asleep in her dream, it was basically the same thing that happened with me laying on the bed. It's like she had never. It was almost like she had never even gone to sleep. She's just laying on the couch. Everything looked normal, and he walked over and he grabbed her by the wrist. He said, "Yvette," and she jumped up with like this electric shock, just because it was so vivid, so realistic. Like she had to kind of look around like, holy shit,
See, I've never mentioned my experiences to my parents about that before, because both of them are atheists.
Oh, really?
They do not believe in any kind of spirituality whatsoever, which is kind of funny. And look at me. Yeah, they really don't. So I keep some of the things I keep to myself, but I'll share it happily online. I don't mind doing that.
So what's your blog, Lord Josh? I didn't know.
Just Lord Josh Allen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you type it on Google, it'll come up. Yeah. I write poetry. I write quotes on there. A lot of good stuff on there, really. I did a blog on the 4 directions, which is the Lammat Mayan hieroglyph.
Right.
That star. And I was connecting the dots, and I actually found some wonderful things. You look at the heart, the 4 chambers of the human heart, the 4 blood types, the 4 legs of most mammals, the 4 wings of most insects, the 4 personality types, etc., etc. And it all started to come together for me. And as I was piecing it together, I started to see the synchronicity. And it was Lammat. Now, Lammat to me is the purest manifestation of Venus. And Captain Lamat is how we communicate, exactly, how we communicate with that spirit. Because obviously it's very difficult for people to communicate with the universe directly. You need something else, like a go-between. And you can have a character or something like that. And that's what Captain Lamat represents for a lot of people. You can relate to him that way. It's more
He's
relatable.
more humanistic.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
It's like the
And so-
Lamat star in its purest
Oh, there it
form,
is.
you know?
Wonderful.
Thank
And
you.
I've actually incorporated that star into most parts of my life. I've got a big leather jacket, a purple and orange leather jacket with the star on the back. I've painted pictures of the star. I've got face paint that I wear for certain rituals, all in accordance with the Lamat Mayan hieroglyph. And I see that as a way to get myself closer to the Mayans, because they were the last civilization to openly worship Lamat. Nobody before then or since then has really mentioned him that much. So it's actually quite strange when you think about obscure spirits. He's definitely up there, definitely.
I think that he is having sort of a resurgence. So, you know,
Yes.
you get yourself talking about him, you know, you see the character in ODT, Captain
Yeah.
Lamat, and then, you know, we even get, the Japanese are notorious for putting occult symbolism in their cartoons, whether it's Baphomet or whoever, and now we've got this Pokemon that's such a spitting image of Lamat symbolism, and even Kong Ming symbolism too.
Exactly, the Oranguru from Pokemon.
Oranguru, that
Yeah,
was
I mean,
his
you
name.
look at that. I mean, take that image, right? You've got a character who holds a feathered fan, and he's got a 4-directional Lamat Mayan hieroglyph on his forehead. And you're thinking, hang on a second, did Lord Josh create this? Because I could have done, and that's what it looks like, you know.
And it's purple and orange. I mean, it's a perfect image. It's
I mean,
exactly
it's
this
beautiful,
image.
isn't it? It's so
It's
beautiful.
amazing.
Yeah,
I couldn't believe it. Yeah.
it gets me excited. Like, I actually I do it for pleasure. I will decipher symbolism off camera, and I do it because I get a huge kick out of it. Like, I'll
You're
be
brilliant.
driving around looking at symbols and car logos and billboards, and I think, oh my God, there it is. I got to make a video on that, you know?
Yeah. No, I love your decoding videos. Those are some of my
The
favorite
Admiral
ones.
Insurance one.
The Admiral
Yeah.
Insurance ones.
Yes.
That's right. Oh, Admiral, yes.
Because then you see the shadow of the back, you know. And,
Yeah, the shadow self, the higher self. And you see, I think he has 4 fingers and the thumb is shaded out.
Correct,
That is conveying the 4 directions. And you've also got a candle in there somewhere as well.
Yeah,
You've
like
got
in the
3
negative
moons.
space of his arm.
Yeah.
You've got the candle. Yeah.
And you've got that square around the side. That's the
Mm-hmm.
4 directions once again. And the square represents all things with solidity. It represents reality, all things tangible. So I think I look at this and I'm thinking, wow, you know, I got to make a video on this.
And the buttons are the phases of the moon.
Are they really? I didn't see that.
Well, or
I think.
the buttons are on the vest. I think you pointed out in the video.
Oh yeah, they are
moon.
moons. Yeah,
Yeah, the moons. But
And you've also got a
different
C.
phases.
You've got a C somewhere.
You got the
in
C
there.
or a crescent moon as
Yep.
well.
Yep, that's right. I
but
did
that was
one
pretty
on the Lexus logo. Did you see that one? Yeah. If you turn it to the sideways, it turns into a V. V for Venus. You've got the round sphere. That could be the green pearl from ODT, the round sphere. It's
Yes.
incredible.
Fascinating.
Which
Yeah.
you could say even going back to the Kabbalah, Western ceremonial magic, the green sphere of Captain Lamat is
Right.
Venus on
Yep.
the Kabbalah. It's
There you
the
go.
sphere Netzach.
And
So
as I
it's-
was pointing out to Sam, like a lot, you look at a lot of countries' flags, and they'll have a lot of green. A lot of the Arabic countries have a lot of green.
That's true.
And you know, people will think, oh, it's the moon too, or a crescent moon. And no, it's probably Venus. I think this is an homage to Venus. You know,
If you guys, I might as well actually decipher something right here and right now. I was planning on doing this in a YouTube video, but it's actually a song. It's not a symbol. You guys heard of that Garth Brooks song, The Thunder Rolls?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Yes, right. In that song, there's a few lyrics. She's pacing by the phone in a faded flannel gown, asking for a miracle, hoping she's not right, praying it's the weather that's kept him out all night. Pacing the 7 stars, praying, miracles. Sounds like weather magic to me. and I was going to make a video on that.
And even when you're at the altar of the 7 stars, you're very physical with your rituals, I noticed. And you do pace in a circle. Yeah. You do this with all the different directions.
Well, with Taoist weather magic, it's not stationary at all. You're always moving around. You're pacing the 7 stars. That's called Bugong, pacing the 7 stars. You walk in a zigzag-like fashion. And as you walk, you say an incantation or a mantra to evoke that particular star lord who lives in that star. See, there are actually 9 stars. The Northern Dipper is an asterism. It's not a constellation. I see people getting that wrong. It's actually an asterism. And what it is, there's 2 hidden stars, and they only become visible to people who are highly spiritually cultivated. So, you know, you've got to practice weather magic and Taoist magic for a good 50 years before you'll see those last 2 stars called Fu and Bai. And they are extremely powerful. And once you see those, you can actually ascend into the Dipper.
The last 2 are on the handle part, correct?
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
You know what? Even though I'm very, very new to this, I do not know as much about it as you do, Josh. I have seen those on the console.
Really interesting. Yes. See, you could actually be naturally gifted, but you just got to cultivate the energy a little bit, you know? You could have the natural talent for it, yeah.
I want to practice more on it this year. It's sort of a New Year's resolution. You know, you've taught me a lot just through both our private conversations and what I've seen in your videos.
Anything that I teach comes from Kong Ming.
Speaking of Kong Ming, I just want to mention it real quick.
Oh, there it is. I love it.
Zhuge Liang.
Oh, it's great.
Wait a minute, where's his name at? Okay, right here. Yeah, Zhuge Liang wrote the commentaries on Mastering the Art of War.
It's a good book, isn't it?
Excellent book.
First organize the inner, then organize the outer. Yeah, it's wonderful.
Exactly.
Yeah. Kong Ming, let me tell you something about Kong Ming. In the beginning, people made fun of him. They thought he was just this villager, this country bumpkin. He was poor. He lived in a thatched cottage. He wasn't a royal or a lord. So people looked at him and thought, who is this guy? How dare he compare himself with historical figures? But then people knew he was an unrecognized genius. And so they started to pay attention. And Liu Bei personally went to recruit him on 3 visits. And Kong Ming tested him 3 times by not being home to test Liu Bei's sincerity. So the first 2 times he was fishing or he was in some Buddhist cave. And the last time they got to meet each other, and Kong Ming, I think it was 27 when he was recruited, he came off of the mountaintop for the very first time, came out of being a hermit and worked for Liu Bei. So you've got someone there who, in my opinion, that gives you a lesson. Do not judge people based on their social standing or based on their reputation if they're unpopular. People look at me and they'll say, why should I listen to you? You've only got 1,000 subscribers. Who are you? And I'm thinking, well, look at Kong Ming, you know?
Right.
But I get that a lot of snobbery, a lot of elitism.
Yeah,
people,
there is. You know? I mean, just because you didn't buy your subscribers like they
exactly.
did. I mean, you know what I mean? Like I could buy 60,000 subscribers. I mean, John Razimus worked really hard for his 10,000 subscribers.
Right.
I mean, I remember subscribing when it was around 3K. It was before 3K, and I've been here and I've seen the rise and I've seen the growth. I mean, so anyway, John, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I remember when it went from 1,000 to like 3,000 is when I made my least videos. People were anticipating. Sometimes the algorithm is crazy. You stop making videos for a year, your subscribers will still grow. And this channel is 10 years old, so 10,000 subscribers, when you look at the 10 years, isn't that impressive. But I've never cheated. I have a clear conscience knowing 10,000 people individually click that button.
Right.
You know, I have that clear conscience. And
yeah, it matters. Yeah, of course. Yeah. But there's so many fraudulent people out there who will go ahead and buy things just for appearance sake, just to look more popular. You know,
right?
You know, I think some of those people that are like, oh, well, you only have 500 subscribers. I've got 5,000 or whatever it might be. So a lot of those people have the least to share. Honestly, they're trying to put on this image of they're equating numbers to success instead of the quality of the content.
That's right.
That's a
I mean,
good point.
sometimes it's deserved, though. It's like, John fucking earned his 10,000 subscribers. I will honestly say, John, that there's some things that you do in your occult, in your paranormal investigations. I consider that stuff much more dangerous than the stuff I do at home. Like,
really?
my occult, in my opinion, yes. Like,
Are you talking about the Safeway spirit or what?
Dude, all of it. Like, whenever just really a lot of it. Like, even with my own experience in this using the spirit box, like it can be unnerving at times.
Well, I can say there's a lot of people that say, how come you're not scared? That's a demon. But ever since I've had the yin and yang, see, this represents yin and yang.
You got to show them the mask too, John.
The color is black and white. I purchased this from an African-American individual that makes these because no one else makes them.
Wow.
And I painted it black and white to match the rest of the yin and yang set.
There it is.
Because it actually has a reason. When a demon enters my room, yeah, it's scary. Most definitely, which is why I do my investigations outside of my room. But even if I come across them, which I do with actual devices, I try to lean scientific to show the evidence. They have to exist. You can't have good without evil. You can't have evil without good. Someone said recently, why do demons exist if there's a God? And I don't want to go into religion, but God wouldn't exist if evil didn't exist.
Right.
If everyone is good, good doesn't exist. If everyone is evil, evil doesn't exist. There has to be yin and yang, and there always will be. It's something you can't stop. You can't force it. It's always going to be there. I'm making a video. Someone. Actually, they're probably here for this. I pulled the Wi-Fi from the other computer because I need the bandwidth for this computer.
For the stream, yeah.
Do
you have that hat, John? That amazing hat with that costume for the intro to Mysterialis when it first came out? You would love this, Lord George.
I might actually buy it.
Here's
Wow, I like that. That is cool.
I love it. Inspired by different things. I actually had a dream of this. I saw a pharaoh, but he was all in black and white instead of gold. And I saw the stripes, and the rest was kind of fuzzy. So I kind of filled in the blanks. Here's a sun. Here's the infinity symbol.
That is so beautiful.
It's an hourglass. We have a triangle, a moon, and then a pentagram and an ankh. And a lot of people say the pentagram is evil and demonic. It's not.
Nah, it's a beautiful symbol. Really, if it's
Captain
upside
America.
down, the right side up,
Yeah.
I think it's beautiful regardless.
Reminds me of another beautiful symbol that's outlawed today. Any guesses, guys? Four directional.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know what it is.
Yeah, it's a shame because I love that one because it's four directional. It's another manifestation of Lamat, but I can't use it.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Josh. That was very prevalent in Taoism as well, right?
Absolutely. It still is today. You could walk into a Taoist temple and see that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I see it on the belly of a Buddha on a regular basis. It's very common in Buddhism, actually.
It's an auspicious good fortune symbol. I mean, I tried to get a robe with embroidery of that symbol, and they wouldn't make it for me.
Really?
They just wouldn't do it. I actually said, look, I'll pay you more. Please make it. And they wouldn't. They refused. So
yeah, I heard it's banned in certain countries.
Oh, it is. Yeah. Yeah.
Huh.
Which is a shame because I could use that. I mean, I could probably use it privately, but
that guy hijacked the symbol because he saw the power in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's true.
He knew its magical potential, so he wanted to use it for his own benefit, I guess.
He was very successful at first.
The Vikings,
obviously, over time, he fell apart. He was a terrible strategist as well. If you actually look at him historically, he was not a good strategist one bit.
Two-front war? No thanks.
Yeah.
It's like he wanted to lose at the end. Yeah.
What were you going to say, John?
That symbol in Viking belief systems, it was the lightning of Thor. So they loved Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, but they also loved Thor's lightning. or maybe it's a different god, but they did have that lightning necklaces. These Vikings had that lightning. That there's one that's deteriorating, and because it was so thinly made, they deteriorated most of them. And the hammer is easier to find, but they also did wear necklaces, the Viking warriors, with that symbol, considering it lightning.
Yeah, I was gonna say you find it in Ireland, you find it all over you find it here in America. Actually, you find the 4 directional.
Yeah, don't mention what it is, and don't.
I'm not.
That guy starting with an H. Is banned from YouTube. If you make a video saying his name like 3 times, that video can get stricken.
But I like David Liebehart.
I'm actually surprised my video didn't get taken down, because I did a video on that. I'm surprised it wasn't taken down.
Well, even vaguely mentioning World War II, I got a video stricken. It's
really
pretty annoying.
Okay.
I fought it, and 50,000 years later, it's back to green with 0 views. That's the problem. The second a video gets stricken, it goes into like a different category of we'll never recommend it ever again.
Yeah, that's right.
I've got something fun I could mention. Speaking of like stricken videos and stuff, except mine got stricken for copyright reasons. But, I think
using music.
Man.
Yeah.
We it was a long time ago when me, Logo Savophiel, and our friend R.C. Lee, who's a paranormal investigator, we used to do this podcast called Shadows in the Dark. And one of the first 2, actually it was our very, very first episode. Well, it got taken down because we had some clips of Poppy in it, which it's a shame. I'm like, why did you strike me down, Poppy? But we did a spirit box session with the spirit from the Goetia Agares, and it was actually the first time I had ever done anything like that. And it was not only was it a positive experience, but to me, like even still kind of looking back on it, that's one of the coolest things I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
But I still have the video. Maybe I'll go back and edit it a little bit so I can make it public again, but I can always just send it to all of you, DM it, private if you want to.
I got a Poppy video.
Yeah,
and it has I have like 20 Poppy clips. It never got stricken.
That's odd.
Yeah, it uses music and like right? I mean,
well, I only used music I filmed. I went to a Poppy concert, and it was super awkward because everyone else was a 16-year-old girl, and I actually went there to investigate, to feel if there was a demonic vibe with Poppy's setup, and there was not a demonic vibe. It was kind of a feeling sorry that it was such a shabby setup. So, but they work really hard. Titanic and Poppy, they work their butt off, and it wasn't the biggest production like a Katy Perry concert. I've never been to one, but Brandon can attest.
Hell yeah, the Santa Barbara Bowl, yeah.
But crazy, even though it was a low budget concert, I still had fun. It was a fun experience, and I filmed Poppy with this cell phone. And she looked straight into my camera, and it was pretty cool. It was pretty fun.
Nice.
You caught a really sweet moment right before Poppy turns around to the audience. Titanic Sinclair, I think they drink something or whatever, and he whispers
ceremonial Kool-Aid.
Yeah, and he whispers to her something like, "I love you. You can eat It's a really sweet moment that I bet you most people didn't see, and John caught it.
That video has been really suppressed big time, though. Like, no one saw it. Oh, well. No big deal.
Talking about demonic energy, one of the ways that you can actually get rid of demonic energy, because what it is, it's imbalance. And in order to balance out an environment, you're going to want to work with the 4 celestial animals. Now, Sam actually mentioned these in my documentary. So you've got the red vermilion bird of the south, the green dragon of the east, the white tiger of the west, and the black tortoise of the north. And occasionally you can also include the golden yellow snake of the center. That represents the magician. That is the practitioner himself working with the other forces. My personal favorite out of the 4 celestial animals is the red vermilion bird. Yeah, he corresponds to the Lee triagram, meaning flame, and he works really great in the summer months. Right now, not so great because you've got more yin in the air than yang. Yang is more beneficial, yin is more unhealthy, and it carries diseases. So when you have these animals and you balance them out, they will actually harmonize the chi in that area. So if you're in a home where you are now, you want to include yang energy, whereas if you're in a graveyard or a mausoleum or a cemetery, you want yin energy. And it's all about balancing it out. And if you have it right, and the statues are all the right size and they're color-coded and put in the correct directions, no spirit should be able to get through. But if the actual statues themselves are incorrectly made, if they're too small, then the animals can turn against you. So the tiger can actually hurt you if it's the wrong size. Yeah.
That's why you need the dragon to be bigger, right?
Exactly. The dragon has to be bigger in size to balance it and to control the white tiger. Otherwise, you're going to have this area where there's terrible noxious chi. And you can feel it too.
What about Lord Josh? I want to, because, you know, John has been writing this book and doing videos on corners of rooms, which is a pattern in occult things, but in books that he picked up. But in the Eastern traditions, in Taoist and Chinese, and the Feng Shui traditions, it seems very much like, oh, it's taken for granted that obviously the four corners of your room or the four corners of your house or the four corners of your yard or wherever you are very much taken into account.
Well, one thing that's fascinating about, there's actually two different versions of practical feng shui. The Western version only deals with rooms and houses, whereas the Chinese version will also take into account the environment where the house is, which is the correct way to do it. So if you're balancing the energy, but you're living in an area where the mountain ranges are inauspicious, it doesn't matter. So what you're going to have to do is acknowledge both sides. And for that, you're going to need to develop a Bagua floor plan. The Bagua is the 8 triagrams. It looks like a spider's web, and you've got the Tai Chi in the center. And those triagrams are basically a measuring tool to measure out yin and yang, to make sure it is balanced. So you've got to make sure that it's completely on an equal level playing field. So the yin lines are broken. The yang lines are unbroken. So when you see the Bagua and it's got those lines, the yin's the unbroken, the yang is just straight across. Always aim for yang. I can't stress that enough.
Really?
Okay. Yeah. In Feng Shui, I picked up this book at the bookstore for $1. It was only $1 at the library sale. And it was Feng Shui, magic, and rituals for love and success. On the off chance it might talk about corners of rooms, and it did. Yeah. There's like one tiny snippet. I can't find it right now, but it definitely talks about the importance of the different directions, north, south, east, west.
Yes.
Of the corners of your house, of different areas. And knowing nothing about this, they definitely say some type of energy collects in the corner of the room. And I've heard this many times at this point, not just through this, but I can't recommend what they recommend, though. They say, I think, put rice in the corner of your room.
Right.
No, that won't work. No.
Other people say put salt in the corner of your room. Personally, I wouldn't put anything there. That's just my personal take.
Do you guys know what feng shui means, the words? The study of wind and water.
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So people say has a weather
what
magic.
Does that have? Exactly. Yeah. People say, what's feng shui got to do with weather magic? That's all about placing objects in corners and building stones. I'm thinking, no, it's the study of the natural elements, basically.
My introduction to feng shui is every Chinese restaurant has a water tank with fish in the entrance for that positive feng shui energy to flow in. Yeah.
Dude, going back to the corners of rooms and even sort of like tying this into EMF, electromagnetism, spirits, or even being a part of the EMF energy. So there's actually, I'll pull it out real quick, but I won't go too much in detail. When talking with Dr. Michael Aquino, who was one of the original members of the Church of Satan, and he was the founder of the Temple of Set, there's actually a ritual in the Satanic Rituals book called the Electric Vorspiel. It's a German name. And what it does basically is you set your altar up facing the corner of a room. So the altar is propped against the corner of a room, and you're using a Tesla coil to help generate electromagnetic energy. And you can basically use the Tesla coil combined with the corner of the room during this ritual to help evoke these spiritual presences. And it even kind of goes into H.P. Lovecraft. There was a story by, or actually it follows the tradition of H.P. Lovecraft, but I think it was written by August Derleth.
Yeah.
It was called Hounds of Tindalos.
Yes, that's Lovecraft kind of. Yeah, yep.
And in the Hounds of Tindalos, the protagonist has this, basically his house gets possessed by these hounds, these hellhounds, which are not really hounds, they're, these multi-dimensional entities. And what he does is he takes, he gets like some sort of pavement and he curves all the rooms.
That's right.
Thinking if he can curve off all the rooms, he can get rid of the corners. Yeah, he can get rid of them, but of course, like in all Lovecraft stories, he misses one corner. He gets killed.
It's actually quite funny talking about corners. In the Chinese mythology, evil cannot go by sharp corners. So if you see a bridge across a river, it will sometimes zigzag in China. That's because evil cannot go past it.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah. So sometimes, it depends on what tradition you're approaching it from, I guess.
I know in Dreams in the Witch House, the Lovecraft story, I always when I think about corners of rooms, Dreams in the Witch House, this guy rents a room and it's basically used to belong to a witch who was hung in the Salem witch trials, because Lovecraft was from New England, very much where I'm from. And even though I'm moving to California. And it's just very interesting. You see the corners pop up there a lot, non-Euclidean geometry. So there's something to angles. And even John Dee might have been on to something like that. And also, I was just thought of my head. I go from topic to topic, but Storm of the Century, which was a great recommendation from Lord Josh. Full thing is on YouTube. You can watch the whole thing. That thing it's a
born in lust, turned to dust. Born in sin, come on in. So I love it.
It's fantastic.
What if I say it twice, at least twice?
Yeah, it's that was a great film, but it seems like there's some sort of weather magic going on there for sure.
Oh yeah. Well, there's actually some symbolism going on there as well.
Yeah, tell me about it.
You've got Andre Lenoge, who looks like an unassuming citizen of this town. He's got a woolly hat on, looks like a regular guy, but he's carrying a wolf's head cane. As he's carrying this cane, it's like wolf in sheep's clothing. You know what I'm trying to say? So everybody's thinking, this guy, he's mysterious, yeah, but he doesn't look that harmful. And obviously, of course, as time goes on, his true form manifests, and he's an old wizard, basically. I was thinking that's probably why he carries that cane. It's sort of deception.
That's a good point. But it also seems to have this effect of it's imbued with maybe his own energy or magical energy, like many staffs are and stuff like that in wizard traditions. And so there's that part where the children go and touch the wolf's head. And they fall asleep. And they fall asleep, and they're in this kind of limbo dimension where if they fall, they die. And so, but
there's also that part where he summons the storm to destroy the lighthouse. I mean, that's not a natural storm.
That's right.
So that's a bit of weather magic going on right there, and that's one of the reasons why I personally commissioned that staff to be made.
Yeah,
nice.
Cool.
Getting that beautiful cane. Yeah, I'm going to walk around with that. Born in sin, come on in.
Well, if you need any LL Bean main gear, I definitely have it.
All right, nice.
So you can put on
Little Tall Island a fictional place?
That is a fictional place, but it reminds me very much of a Camden, Maine. There are so many little sleep. As a kid, me and my dad used to go just on a weekend. We used to drive up the Maine coast, and the New Hampshire Maine coast. It's mostly the Maine coast. And just stop at any sleepy old town. And I'll tell you, man, it's almost like it's another dimension. And there are so many little communities like that, like Little Tall.
I mean, it looks beautiful from what I've seen.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, it absolutely, the fresh air, the air just like puts you to sleep like right away. I mean, it's it's just so fresh, and you have.
When I was watching the movie, I wasn't familiar with the accents at all. I thought, what are these accents?
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because because from being a local, I can tell, you know, a Maine accent from a Boston accent, from a Rhode Island accent, from a whatever accent, and trying to lose mine. And I can also tell when an actor is trying to put on a Boston accent.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
you mentioned that in the tweet. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I thought it was maybe some British actors in that film, but I might be wrong. But it's really interesting in that film, you know, that like I was thinking about it, you know, and I think Sam and I might have been talking about this. It's like, okay, or I was talking about it to my friend John, the other John Evans, and you know, you have him really, if they didn't give in to his demands for a child, spoiler alert, for a protege. And there was that one man, Anderson, who was, I forget
the
his
police
first name.
officer. Yeah.
The police officer, the constable, who, you know, he was like, we have a choice here, you know, like, but then his wife, you know, volunteers and everybody restrains him. It's an argument against mob rule in a way as well. It's and it's you know, that, and it's cool how it tied it into Roanoke, Virginia, and how they just disappeared.
The way I look at it, I mean, Andre is powerful. Lenoge is a very powerful magician, but he feeds off of people's energy. So if you believe in him, he will use that as fuel. He will grow stronger for it, like Freddy Krueger from Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yep.
The fear is what rules them. And so I think with him, he was trying to, obviously with the suicides that he was causing and the terror, he was building up enough energy to make that work. And the only person who could see through it was the constable.
Yeah. Yeah. And then everybody was afraid. They didn't want, and it's just interesting because, that he picked the right town because they will hold that secret, you know.
I mean, it's basically revealed because he says, perhaps you tricked yourselves.
Yes, that's right. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's a great line at the end.
They tricked themselves, and that's it, really. Yeah. Remember those wielding stones that he has, black and white stones? I like those.
That's a Freemasonic tradition too, is it not? Like when you vote on something, if you're voting on the worshipful master should be, or a candidate, if you're a Freemasonic candidate, you go up and each person puts either a white ball or a black ball, and that's where you get blackballed from. That you were prevented into. So there's a lot of phrases that come from that tradition.
But I really do think that Andre fixed it. I think that he intended for Ralphie. Yeah.
Oh, from the very get-go. Yeah. Because like when he murdered the old lady,
up in the store. He's seen him in the store, and he says, "You got a fairy saddle on your nose."
On your nose, yeah.
Yeah.
Even before that, you can see pictures of the old woman who was a piano teacher teaching Ralphie on the piano. So I think he had him picked out right from the get-go. The plan was already devised. I mean, you're talking about someone who's thousands of years old, you know.
4,000 years old, Andres.
4,000 years old. Yeah. It's a fascinating movie.
It's a great film, isn't it? A great miniseries.
It really is.
4 hours long, I think. Fantastic.
Yep, just about, and I loved it, you know, so.
Storm of the Century for anybody out there listening.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, did I not say the title? Storm of the Century. It's not a book.
If it's got storms and it's got magic, I'm in.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's funny what you mentioned about, and Josh even mentioned the Freddy Krueger reference about how your belief in something can grant it power. And I think that might be how a lot of these spirits are as well. You know, you look at a good example, I mean, it's kind of silly, but it's true. Look at the Simpsons episode where Homer steals the giant donut from the big boy, and like he comes to life and all the mascots come to life, and they'd have that little song, just don't look, just don't look. And, you know, if you take away, it's like that old saying where consciousness goes, energy flows. So if you're not feeding into that mentally, you know, you take away its power, just like when the girl in Nightmare on Elm Street is like, you know, Freddy, you're not real, you're shit. And he just sort of disappears. Yeah. I think that might even be why in ancient cultures, You see a lot of statues built of deities. You see a lot of hieroglyphs and things because this visual representation allows people not only to connect with them, but sort of feed into that energy, opposed to sort of the monotheistic, non. I hate to use this term because I hate it, but idol worshiping traditions.
Spirits, they react to how much you believe in them. Most definitely. There's a spirit at an 1830s house, and I set up this device in the window, and the place is padlocked with a huge lock, which I haven't filmed yet. So when I go back, I'm going to film the lock. I'm going to show you there's no one behind. I invited Brandon to come.
Hopefully I'll be there.
To just be a perspective of here's another person witnessing it. I put it in the window, and here is a bag full of really staticky foam balls. They're really tiny. And I actually bought these for an experiment with static electricity and spirits, but I can have the device go off. It's not very dark. This is obviously made for nighttime, but let me see if I can. Come on, it was working earlier. But the thing intelligently, I asked it to set it off. I said, I'm going to take off if you can set this device off. And it was pretty quick and pretty motivated to get me out of there. Maybe it dislikes me. I don't know. But okay, here we go.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, check it out.
Wow.
Wow.
All right. So this is
That's pretty cool.
what happens. It's just a static electricity device. That's it. It was lighting up earlier. And is there a way to rig it? Most definitely. But I was a good 10, 15 feet away.
Oh, yeah.
And I was not setting it off. Even if you can see me trying to set it off, it's very hard to control. So the spirit set them off one at a time.
Yeah.
You can see even me trying this close, let alone 10, 15 feet away behind the camera.
Right.
I was in front of an abandoned building with no one inside. I knew there was a spirit there. I said, can you set it off? I'm going to take off. If you can set this off. It took it off. It took this and two other. And I want Brandon to witness it because anyone else I would invite, as long as they're not there to mock the spirit. Because I think the only reason the spirit came out is because I was respectful of it.
Right,
very
exactly.
respectful.
Yeah.
John is very respectful.
I told the spirit,
Yeah.
there's probably been 100 people here since me, and they didn't know you're even here. I said, I'm respectful of you being here. Can you please set this off? And it did register all 3 times I've been there on ghost investigations. I went there a good maybe 3 times in the day, not knowing there's a ghost there. And not ghost investigating. Looked like an abandoned place. Looked like there's nothing there. And my nephew is the one who told me about it in 2012. He said, hey, check out this pirate house. It was built by a former pirate. It says on the plaque, pirate. And so he actually was on a Spanish galleon. And that Spanish galleon did have a pirate who did raid, I guess, between Spain and California. And this guy abandoned, and he became a good pirate, if you will. And he joined the Catholic Church, and they granted him, some land as long as he would help them build. I'm not Catholic, but I could tell the guy is probably a pretty good guy. And I don't think the spirit has anything to do with this pirate guy. Nothing. I think it's just a random spirit that likes this abandoned area in the middle of nowhere. And Brandon actually sent me a video of a particular religion, which if I mention, the video gets stricken out for some reason. But this one religion believes in an ancient tradition that spirits are allowed to inhabit places that are far away from humans, so they don't bother humans. I think he was specifically demons are allowed to inhabit the forests. They're allowed to inhabit abandoned buildings.
Yep.
And this particular video of this guy, the last time I mentioned the religion, the video got struck.
Oh, man.
Because
that's really odd.
Yeah, it is.
it was a positive video telling positive beliefs of the particular religion. It's too bad you can't mention it, but you know, I think the tradition was fascinating. I might use that clip, but I invite Brandon and someone else might come, and it took 15 minutes for the entity spirit to showcase itself. It actually walks in the grass, poltergeist walking in the grass, and the grass is about this tall and it's dead and dry, and it looks like wheat, but it's not wheat. It's just yellow, dead, dry grass.
And then the owl too. You know, you had the owl.
Oh, the owl.
The owl screeched a blood-curdling screech, as if either I or the spirit bothered it. I don't know. Could have been.
But that was
something else.
interesting. That was
no
really
idea.
interesting.
Wow.
But the owl was scarier than the spirit.
Yeah.
That's how timid this spirit is. It's a very actually nice, timid spirit. And it's not a scary environment at all. Even after it walked in this grass, and I haven't released this footage, but I want to go back with Brandon. I want to go back another time and really try to get crystal clear footsteps, something that I couldn't CGI fake. I want people to see what it is. It's real. It's a real phenomenon. I'm glad it's far away from my house. I don't want it following me home, but it's an entity that actually occupies. It's very subtle. There's a mall nearby with spirits off the charts setting off anything. So I will take this to the mall. I'm going to set it down and I'll walk 100 feet away and see if it'll do it.
Yeah.
It's up to them whether it works or not, but I think they probably will. They seemed very cooperative, the spirits at the mall parking lot. I don't know if it's an ancient burial ground. Someone shared a map program or website where you can see the history. And I went back to the 60s and it was nothing, desert.
Yeah.
With one tiny trail. And only in the 80s and 90s did it turn into a mall. So if anyone died there, it would have been anciently or very recently.
Yeah.
I don't know. But so Brandon, are you looking forward to that? Are you
Yeah, definitely, man. No, I mean obviously there's a bit of trepidation, but I mean, I think I told you, John, like I have an older brother who's about 9 years older than me, and he loved investigating ghost haunted houses, and I live in New England, so there's like 20 near, within a driving distance, but I'm moving to California because of the baby and all that. So, in Santa Barbara specifically, and I still don't know exactly where this house is. I have an idea of the
it's
town.
probably like less than an hour away from where you're moving.
That's where I'm thinking. And I'm thinking it's north of where I would be moving. So, but at any rate, yeah, I'm very excited, man. I just go out and clap. I got the black hat. I got this the color scheme. You don't have to worry about that. I got a black jacket, gray shirt. It'll be fine. Just got to maybe put a patch on the top here.
I'll get you a Mysterialis shirt. I'll get you a shirt. So what's your size?
Oh, cool.
Nice.
Extra
What's
large.
your size?
Extra large.
Extra large. Okay.
Yeah,
and
even
your
if
brother,
it's just to borrow it.
What size is your brother? I'll get him a shirt.
Oh yeah, if he's hopefully he'll be down and he'll have the time. He's extra large as well. Yeah.
Okay.
So
and it's a real legitimate authentic thing. I only had one negative comment on the preview. They said, how do we know you didn't program it? This is not a programmed device. There's batteries on the bottom. It's very simple. I don't want to break it open though, because it's 3D printed. The guy that makes this, he 3D prints it and then he super glues it. And there's no way for me to open it without breaking it. But I did not program it. And I'll have other devices. I'll bring other stuff. I'll bring this scientific static meter. I'm probably going to set up 4 of these. Because the one I set up had a lapel mic that I put in the window. And I'm having and I listened to it on 1,000%. And I couldn't hear much of anything. I think the spirit is setting it off almost right next to it on the outside of the house. It's not on the inside. The spirit was literally on the outside. So if any audio, I have to put it almost facing out or whatever, but maybe it doesn't want to talk. It's a real spirit, but it's very timid. Don't be too scared of it. Don't be too scared.
Right. So it's one of those spirits that it doesn't necessarily take over. It doesn't take over the room. It's not very assertive or commanding.
Yeah, it's not at all.
No.
There's definitely, you know, I think whether it's dead people or even demons in the Goetia, like there's definitely some good friendly spirits out there. And then on the other hand, there's some very infernal, you know, aggressive spirits too. So, you know, really just proceed with caution. And, you know, whenever you come across one of these good spirits, just enjoy the experience, you know, take the time to enjoy it for what it's worth, because there's a lot of people out there that, the thing that fascinates me about the spirit box is I feel like finally, for the first time in history, we have something where we can finally talk to these things, you know, on some degree. You know, sometimes it might just be a one-word response or even like a fragment of a sentence. Like, I imagine it takes a lot of energy for them to transmit through those devices, because I've had times where one was trying to tell me something and I might get like a fragment of a sentence and he got cut off halfway or something. And I'm like, oh, what? You know, I'm trying to figure out what it is he wants to tell me. And it's exhilarating. I mean, yeah, there's definitely it's like Josh mentioned earlier, you know, whenever you do these rituals, there's almost that physical sensation, like using a drug, perhaps. Yeah. And I think, you know, when you use the spirit box or even go to these haunted areas, you know, it does provide that physical sensation. But
if there's someone out there that wants to work with friendly spirits, then I would recommend that you work with elementals, local nature spirits, because I've never had a bad experience with any of the local elementals where I live. They're very peaceful, very passive, and very feminine as well, very yin in energy. So I would say definitely look in your natural environment. If you live near a cave or a waterfall, there'll definitely be spirits within the rocks near the waterfall. Communicate with them, find out what they want and appease them. Bring them the offerings and they will work with you, and they might actually benefit you in some way.
Maybe bring some pennies or rum, or if you're not sure, just go out, sit by the riverfront, sit in the forest, open up your mind and, you know, try and intuitively decide what it is they might want you to bring.
It's all about intuition and gut instinct. If you feel like you're getting a negative response from a spirit, then leave, because then you're intruding on their grounds. But if you feel like you're welcome, then stay and form a friendship. I would recommend that. I've done that where I live, and that's why I'm successful at weather magic, because if these spirits didn't want me practicing, they wouldn't let me. And they've agreed to allow me to do what I do. Also, when you go out into nature and you want to meditate, one of the, in the Taoist mythology, when you meditate, you should be very much aware of your environment. So when you meditate, you absorb the chi with the environment that you're in. So if you're in a place that's dead, that's filthy, you'll be absorbing that energy into your body, and it can cause illness. So I recommend you go to a nice, vibrant forest with a very quiet stream. The more quiet the water, the more auspicious it is, and the better chi you'll get from it.
Yeah, I tried to be respectful, and I don't necessarily meditate. Maybe I could give that a shot, but I definitely have patience. The spirit will see me waiting for an hour straight, and it kind of rewards that patience with some sign that it's there. But if I'm going to bring Brandon and his brother, if they want to come, and anyone that is close enough where I know they're not going to mock the situation. See, if I brought someone that mocks spirits and they showed up, hey, spirit, you're effing not real. F you.
Yeah.
Spirit, you're effing stupid. It wouldn't show up. It just wouldn't. And it has nothing to do with, I don't know. It's all the attitude. It saw my attitude was calm and peaceful, perhaps like it was.
Yeah.
And I think atheists could witness the same evidence with this or any other device All they got to do is have patience, be calm and somewhat respectful, and they can see it for themselves. So I would be willing to take an atheist there as well. I'm not afraid against that, as long as they would.
And there's no argument against, like, I mean, for saying, because I mean, you go out of your way. One of the things I like about you, John, is that you go out of your way to falsify yourself, like a good scientific method follower. You verify your results by trying to falsify and prove it wrong. So when you're in LA, I think you were like, oh, well, this could be a cell tower because there's a cell tower right here, or this, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. But in an abandoned place, way out, and not way out, but you know what I mean, like away from any sort of devices or electronic things.
Yeah,
I mean,
I left my cell phone in the car just in case.
Exactly. You always turn off the cell phone or leave it in the car. I mean, you know, because that's a lot of people that would totally destroy it. So, and not destroy it, but I mean the evidence for it. But what I like about you is that you definitely are aware of that, you know, and so the abandoned places, I think, is where you're going to find a lot of evidence for the spirits.
I just want to share one thing. I had a Halloween live stream not too long ago, last Halloween, obviously. And I think one of the Ghost Adventures crew members watched it. I don't think
really?
Either they caught the tail end or maybe they watched the rebroadcast, because shortly after that video, I was contacted by a particular channel that is also where Ghost Adventures airs. And they said, hey, let's do an interview for a paranormal show. And I haven't talked about this for months on purpose because I didn't know if I got it or not. I didn't want to...
jinx it.
To jinx it, yeah. And so this was literally close to Thanksgiving. I did the interview. I was interviewed via chat by a representative of a major television show.
Wow.
And I thought I did a good job. I thought it was a good interview. I said, hey, I use devices like this, static electricity. You can find evidence of spirits. I just talked like I'm talking right now. And they actually, they said, yeah, we're looking for someone like you. And they specifically said, we're looking for a scientific Egon type person. And I said,
no
sure.
way.
Cool.
I said, I'll be the Egon of any ghost show. Sure.
Yeah.
And I didn't get it. It's no big deal. It's no big deal. But it's unusual to me that they would even have watched this tiny channel. So believe it or not, there are some big players apparently checking out YouTube for, I guess, what they would consider talent.
Well,
but I'm not an actor. And so maybe someone that's more of an actor would have gotten it as opposed to me. I don't know.
Well, you put a hell of a lot of work into what you do. You have very professional equipment and good editing and format of your videos as well. So I could totally see you being like the next paranormal guy on whether it's the History Channel, the Sci-Fi Channel, or one of these types of networks. I could totally see the John Razimus paranormal experience or whatever it might be. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's something to shoot for.
Cool.
Definitely.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think it's the biggest shot I ever got, and I don't know. I don't know if it'll ever happen again, but I'm motivated just by the truth, telling the truth. That's what I told them. And the truth can be wishy-washy. A lot of people want entertainment as opposed to the truth. I don't know, but the lady was really nice, and she's a professional in the industry. I respect her. I respect even being considered. I'm very honored to be considered.
Wow.
And man, what was I going to say? Let's see. Maybe I used the word dogma. Man, I used the word dogma. I said I don't jump to the conclusion whether the spirit is this or that. I don't rely on a book to tell me. I kind of just gauge it on what I feel. I definitely feel spirits when they walk through me, and maybe I lost her at that point. I don't know. I don't know.
Don't worry about it.
But
you know,
but I don't know. I thought it was
That
a
is
cool
so
opportunity.
cool. That is so awesome. I remember, like, you know, you wouldn't reveal the details, and I was just dying to hear, like,
Oh yeah.
you know,
When she first contacted me, she said, "Oh, you sell ghost hunting equipment?" And so maybe a couple of my videos, they thought I sell it.
oh, what? Really?
You know how YouTubers will show stuff over and over,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's secretly they're just selling it.
Right.
I don't secretly sell any of this stuff. I have no contract with these guys. If you find a product better than this, use it. I don't get paid off by anybody. I thought it's pretty cool. Gary Galka, who makes the Millimeter, he followed me on Twitter. I think maybe that's why one of the main guys, maybe Zach Bagans, saw my tweet in response to the Ghost Adventures. I was responding to their Dybbuk Box live Halloween special. So I think one of the guys watched, and a couple people in the chat said, "What do you think about the ghost hunters? Are they fake?" And I said, "I don't think they are fake." So I think maybe that got my foot in the door. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I respect the Ghost Adventures crew. I like them a lot better than the Ghost Hunters crew personally. That's just my personal take.
This is just a this is just an open opinion. I want to know your take on it, John. Do you ever watch Bretty44? What do you think of her videos?
Oh, you know, I focus on obscure channels like Freethinker Silver, and I never heard of her. I've never heard of her. Who is that?
You doing okay, Freethinker Silver?
Yeah, no, I'm doing great. I'm just listening. You know, I mean, you guys are like 90%, and I can't contribute to the conversation.
Oh,
no.
It's not true.
I checked a ghost under a bridge, and that was really cool. I sent it to John's channel. I plan to check out more ghosts once the weather warms up. More bridge.
Fly out to Santa
I'll
Barbara.
warm it up for you.
And
I'll warm it up for you. He says.
yeah, I like the idea of like using microphone to you know, to maybe put a microphone in the woods and just listen to what it records. I mean, like, I'm sort of like a little wary as to the whole getting in too close into the occult, but I respect you guys are into the occult. That's great.
Well, you know, know that I'm not into the occult, but I respect. I respect Sam Shadow and Lord Josh.
Same here. Yeah.
I'd like to educate myself more about it, but I've moved in the direction sort of being more just to I can't control my life. I've also dealt with health issues. In the end, I decided just to I believe in God, and I was like, my acupuncturist, who's he knows a lot of, obviously, I mean, he's a Chinese guy, but he's Canadian. And he was the one who, like, I was into the law of attraction and all that stuff. I've talked about this before, and you know, I feel like the law of attraction has worked for me for years, but in the end, it's not something you can really control. And I learned within the last year just to, okay, like, I can't control this anymore. I'm just gonna, you know, maybe that's the point, is you can't be completely in control.
Well, I would make the counter argument that really the only reason I even practice magic at all, going back several years, like I've been doing magic 5 years now, and it really doesn't seem like I've been doing it that long. And compared to other people, that's like a drop in an ocean. But going back about 5 years ago, I was very insecure, introverted, down on my luck. I was unemployed.
Right.
I would say that I didn't have a lot of control over my life at all.
Right.
And if anything, not even in means of material success, but doing these things, like the only reason I do any of it, whether it's a spell or a ritual or summoning these spirits, I'm sure some of it might be for research purposes, almost like being a scientist, kind of like what John does. But ultimately, the reason I do any of this stuff is because I'm trying to make my life better, and it's worked. I've opened a lot of doors, and I've you know, became much happier with my life and myself since then.
I totally believe in it. There's definitely something going on. I'm a believer. I just worry about the state of my soul when I die.
Yeah.
I believe in God, and I
believe in God too.
I'm worried about if I trying to control my life to produce. I mean, it's a fine line. It's a fine line. What I mean, again, you're using it for good things. That's great. I'm not in a position to judge. I'm not in a position to say like what are we supposed to be. You know, I've had lots of good luck in my life. I mean, I like astrology. I mean, that would be frowned upon, and I don't like divinations, but I feel like we fit into astrological types. So I can't throw all that out, but yeah, I mean, honestly, it's all cool. I don't have anything against all this stuff, but I've sort of
that's cool. It's just not for you,
man.
Like, different.
Everybody, everybody has their own path in life.
Yeah,
you know,
So,
That's
Sam,
true. Yeah.
Who is Brittany 44? Now we were just before we get off topic.
Brittany 44. She's a paranormal investigator here on YouTube. She's actually a very cute girl, very fun, bubbly personality, but she does some really, she's very much like John. She goes into some really scary stuff. So it's kind of funny to see like this really, you know, happy, bubbly, pretty girl going into these haunted houses, getting these super possessed haunted dolls and shit.
Oh my God.
Using Ouija boards and attics and stuff, you know?
Really?
Yes.
She's this blonde white girl who I don't know. I think she had an episode. She went to Colborne Lodge, which is not far from where I live. Yeah, which I did sort of a ghost investigation there too. Like I didn't go into the house. I went around there at night, and I ran into a homeless guy camped out there. So I had to leave. But yeah.
Have you guys heard of Poke Runyon?
Yes.
You know Poke. I love Poke.
No.
He's
Poke is
great.
man.
He's old school. I bet he's in his 80s now. He's a true old magician. I love him.
He focuses on the Goetia and the Solomonic traditions, and really the traditional sort of Golden Dawn way. You know, he uses the triangles, the circles, the archangels. He's very much by the book, where I'm kind of like, I'm kind of breaking the rules, if you want to know the truth.
I'm kind of a traditional practitioner. Like, I follow the old Taoist text very closely when I'm doing magic, like the magical hand seals and the pacing. I try to do it all in accordance with the texts.
Yeah,
some people like to break away from it.
He definitely introduced me to the Goetia or Goetia. There's a video where a spirit enters when he's talking, and the spirit interrupts. And I'm going to make an entire video of it because it doesn't even phase him. He knows what it is, and he ignores it and just continues with the script. But I've seen it in other sorcerer YouTube videos, and I'm going to do a compilation of here's a spirit actually entering the scene when these people are talking, and they kind of dismiss it because they know the viewer probably won't believe. But I know what it was. It happens to me.
Oh, totally. I think
a lot of people have experiences and they will keep them to themselves because they're embarrassed or they're afraid of other people ripping on them, you know. I mean, when I first started to get into magic, and people would ask me, other magicians would say, what kind of magic are you into? And I would say, Taoist weather magic. And they would say, you've made that up. That doesn't exist.
Oh,
I said, no, it totally exists. And obviously I was kind of seen as an outcast, even in the occult community. So if you're into something fringe and unusual, don't be afraid of that. That's your strength. Use it to your advantage.
You know what? I think a lot of the people that criticize are the ones who don't understand. And, you know, really, whenever you use like logical arguments and sort of, you know, counterpoints, like they might say, oh, well, this is fake because of this, this, and this. And you could say, okay, well, maybe it is, but let's take this into consideration. They almost look at that as a threat, and they challenge their own ideologies. It's like, for example, if some asshole comes up to me and is like, oh, well, you know, that's just fake. That's all in your imagination. It's like, if I go home and I'm like, I'm sorry, but if I go home and I'm like, okay, well, I'm not sure if I believe in this or not anymore, then my faith was never that strong to begin with.
Yeah.
You know, you have to have conviction in your beliefs. And I think whenever we challenge their beliefs, you know, they probably don't have a lot of conviction in their own viewpoints.
Yeah.
Well, and you know what's funny? Like John I mean, luckily my channel's so small that it's usually mostly my friends and stuff, and people that like me. But you know, John, I'll see some of the comments on John's channel, and it's like, obviously they either watch just like 2 minutes of it, or they don't even have never watched another video, and it's these rapid comments. But then you go and you, first of all, they don't have like a face in their icon, and then you go to their channel and they have nothing to say. There's no content that they have. So it's like,
yeah, exactly.
Right, you can criticize all you want, but what are you doing? Let's see what you have to say. Let's see.
I remember an hilarious comment. It wasn't even on my channel. I found it on EA Coetting's channel, and I was just looking through, and someone says EA is just as bad as that guy who dresses in Chinese clothes and uses a feathered fan. Didn't even name me, but I was thinking that's a lot of people that could be.
Yeah, right. That's pretty cool. Well, the thing. Oh, sorry, John.
I respect his viewpoint. Become a living god. I personally don't think I can become a living god, but I still have purchased a couple of his books straight from him. So
yeah, which books do you have, John? Again,
I have seen on his live streams someone mention my name, and it's not me. It's obviously someone else, and they asked him what he thinks about me, and I think he had no comment because he knows I bought a couple of his books, and I have a different viewpoint. So, you know, I respect him. At least he won't trash me. That's the good thing, you know?
Yeah.
You still have the necromantic sorcery book and the green butterfly or whatever it's called.
Spider and green butterfly.
I think, yeah, but I think John had like a rare edition.
Both versions of
wow.
The leather one and the felt one. And the first time I bought the leather one, it was a used, and it smelled like incense, very heavy. And I put it on my bookshelf, and my collection was very small back then, like 5 books, 10 books, and of occult books. And it creaked. This cabinet creaked constantly, very loud creaks. I sold the book, and the creaks totally stopped.
Wow.
I bought this version, which is brand new. It still has the Chinese paper. And you can see it came from China, and no creaks. It's never been ritualistically used. So I thought,
cool.
Hey,
and
Josh,
you do not practice. Sorry, Sam, what was you saying?
I was just going to ask. You're on the Become a Living God forum, right?
I am. Yes.
Well,
right.
Would you say that I know your practice is very different. Would you say, like, in a way, you sort of have a common ground with EA Coetting in the sense that a lot of people try and villainize what you do? They say, oh, well, that's evil. You know, you shouldn't control the weather. You shouldn't do this or that. Or
yeah, that's exactly it. The way I see it, the way I see magic is a tool, just like a knife. A knife is not evil. It's how you use it that determines its effect. The kind of magic that I practice is really gray magic, and it has the potential to be abused or to be used properly. So obviously you could use it for things like watering crops, ending starvation, or you could use a storm to destroy an entire province. It all depends on the practitioner's preferences of what he or she desires. So when I'm on those forums, I think a lot of the guys on there get it because they're not so polarized to good and evil. They understand there's that misunderstood middle path, gray magic. I mean, most of them are left-hand path, of course, but there's that middle zone, the zone of harmony and balance where the two sides have to exist, and you walk the path. And I think that's how magic really is. All forms of magic are gray, all of them. It's when the magician starts picking them up. It's actually the spellcaster, not the spell. That's what I say.
wow.
Yeah, I love the forum. I mean, I've had some good experiences on the forum. Met so many good friends who I talk to on Skype now. And Silky, who was in my documentary, he came from Become a Living God. So I love it.
Very cool.
Yeah, I love it. It's a good community. And I don't really, it's not often that I will go out of my way to talk to people very much. I'm kind of a bit of an island on YouTube. I just do my own thing and I just stay on my own channel. But lately I've been putting myself out there more and I've been meeting some great people and I love it. I should have done it a long time ago.
That's the great thing about the internet, man. You know, we can, earlier today, there's another guy. I encourage other people to check his channel out. It's called Diamonosophy, but his name is Paul Fredericks, and he practices the left-hand
Really
path.
cool.
mainly a Temple of Set and like the traditional theistic Satanism. But today he sort of did this little live stream about how he got into that in the first place, and sort of how you should go out and seek the others, you know, quote unquote. And the others are basically just like-minded people. And I think sort of the beauty of the internet is, you know, people 20 years ago in the 90s, they didn't have the opportunity. Well, I mean, it was around, it was just very primitive, but they didn't really have the opportunity like we have today, you know, for me to meet Lord Josh, Freethinker, John Razimus, Brandon Young, and all these other great people. So we should connect. We're stronger, I think, when we come together.
Absolutely.
We can learn. Yeah. We can grow.
You know what else I think is healthy, at least in my opinion? I just enjoy doing it. I like to be challenged, and I like to debate. That's one of the reasons why I went on the Psychic Vampires Omnis podcast.
You were great on there, by the way.
That was awesome. That was fantastic. That's when I first saw you, Lord Josh.
Right.
I was like, oh, he's holding his own, and they're loving it. You know?
I get a kick out of it. I like it. I like the pressure. I was also on another podcast that's not so well known. It's called the SOK. The SOK cast, and that was a gaming podcast, and I was on there like a fish out of water. You got like 5 conformists against me. I was on my own talking about weather magic, and I held my own there as well, I think. So I like to get out there and talk to people who might not necessarily agree with me, because I like that, you know, I like the challenge that it gives to me.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we have 2 questions in the chat. Let me just throw these 2 questions out there. Question 1 is, do you believe that items moving around a house is caused by some kind of subconscious telekinesis? And I would say personally, I've never witnessed telekinesis. I don't have that ability. I personally witnessed an intelligent being react intelligently and moved something. But I've never experienced. What do you guys think about telekinesis?
It is real. I do believe in it, because there's a similar concept in Taoist weather magic called weather sense perception, where the practitioner will go into such a deep state of flow or trance state that he will start being able to manipulate the weather using his own mind and moving clouds. It's called training cloud chi. You can actually move clouds in the air just by using your own mind without even moving whatsoever. So I do believe it is possible. But in regards to objects moving around the house, I would probably put that down to more of a paranormal activity, personally.
I think the difference is if you want to boil it down to one or the other, if you're in your house and things are just moving around on their own, that's definitely a spirit. But if you're sitting down, you're focusing your intent, you're meditating, you're focusing your mind, you know, I don't think that telekinesis can spontaneously happen. You know what I mean?
You have to cultivate it. Yeah.
Right. You have to harness that chi.
This. My answer, I guess, I don't really know what the precise definition of telekinesis is, but I will say this. I mean, I've been studying martial arts since I was 12 years old, and went from Taekwondo to Northern Praying Mantis Kung Fu, which was a complete art of calligraphy and philosophy and medicine, and as well as self-defense. But in meditation, it included meditation, Zen meditation, and cultivation of a chi ball, this thing called the chi ball.
Yes.
Which at 13, and my sifu, which is basically a word for master or sensei, in that tradition, he came over with a candle. And the closest thing that ever happened was the candle flickered very much so when the ball was there. And he could put the whole candle out. I don't know. I mean, I've seen the whole thing with, what is it, the man, Amazing Randy, where there's that kung fu guy. And like he's obviously blowing on it or something like that. It wasn't that. So that's, I don't know.
Talking about the chi ball. Was that created via the middle dantian by any chance?
What do you mean? What is that? I don't know.
The 3 dantians, the one in the upper head, the chest, and the stomach. I was just wondering if you created and manifested that via a dantian is an energetic core within the body. Yeah. You can create things from that. I just wondered if you use that method, the 1 through 10 meditation. Professor Johnson talks about it in his book.
Oh, interesting. No, I don't know. It does feel like it comes from that area because your spine, you have to have a correct posture. You have to have an alignment, and so perhaps it does come from those centers.
The
I'm
lower
not sure.
dantian, which is in the stomach, is the original source of all chi. That's the
Right.
first and most important one. So yeah, that makes sense.
Right. And I just remember, I had those few chi guided meditations, and then I was so obsessed with that. I thought I had stumbled upon the secret, that there was this like a magnetic force like in between my hands that like, what is it? Like, people know about this? Like, not, and so I would show my friends, and they couldn't get it, of course, because they didn't have the concentration or whatever it was. And it's very hard to kind of, for some people, I guess, to find it because they can't quiet their mind.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, but anyway, I was at 12 years old. So when my mom would go off for work in the summertime, and there was no school, I would stay at home for hours all day, and it would just pass in the blink of an eye, trying to cultivate this chi. Turned out my house was on a Native American tragedy, the King Philip's War, which was the first war in the colonies. And there's a couple of stones. I've told the story before, so I'm not going to bore anybody too much. But basically, I had an experience where it got really out of control, and the chi ball just expanded to the point where I felt like there was an entity definitely in front of me, and perhaps even pretty close to possession, if not almost complete possession at that point. Very interesting.
Has anyone here actually been possessed?
I have been possessed.
Yeah,
I came close.
Yeah.
I think I came close with that experience. Yep.
I would say no. I'd say I've never been possessed, but if I was angry, I might have been influenced temporarily.
Right.
Yeah, oppressed or something.
Honestly, John, your story about the time the spirit walked through you and for a brief moment you started having visions and things, to me, from my own experiences, I think that is an authentic possession. It doesn't have to be like The Exorcist or something like that, but I think that was a real possession.
Which specific are you talking
okay,
about?
Corral?
I think so. It was the time you said a spirit had walked through you, and for like a brief moment you had visions, things like that, thoughts in your head.
Yeah, in the poltergeist room, the spirits would walk through me once a day at night. I actually started keeping a journal, and I noticed it was different every single time, so I stopped. But around 8 p.m., 9 p.m., one spirit would walk through me every single night from right to left as I was laying down, as I was about to get ready to go to sleep, right to left. And then one night, a spirit went right to left. And then I believe the second poltergeist spirit went left to right. And it only happened once in the 6-month space. Only once did they go right to left. I felt they made a mistake when that happened. But independent of that, a different spirit, because I can sense spirits, a slightly more powerful spirit than these two imp poltergeist demons, which I call them imps, because I had a sense that they were about 3 feet tall. Because when they jumped on top of me to choke me one time in the middle, I could almost feel the weight of them on my body. And it felt like a 3.5 tops foot creature. And it was 3 hands choking me. 1, 2, and then inside my mouth, a third one on my tongue. And so
shit.
Independent of that, I found out it was 2 entities and not one. It was 2 entities pretending to be one entity just to mess with me. And independent of all that, a spirit showed up, almost like a watcher, almost like a spirit wanting to record my reaction to these poltergeists. Showed up, totally invisible, and it walked through me, right to left, a lot stronger energy, and images flashed in my mind the second that it walked through me. And I'm not going to reveal what those images are yet because I'm drawing them for my book, Corners of Rooms, but it only happened, I would say, twice. the image flashes in my head. 2 images. And both those images are in this book.
Ooh.
This book
Well, that's a nice book.
Let me get rid of the cover so you can see what it is. This book is called The Book of Ceremonial Magic by Arthur Edward Waite. And he clearly knew what he was talking about. David Bowie said this guy was the real deal. And I've never practiced magic that I know of, except for maybe you can consider this magic, but I've never purposely practiced magic. But going through this book, I found 2 images in this book which exactly mirror the images these spirits flashed in my head. So I thought that was interesting, and it's obviously relevant. I'm going to put it in my book, Corners of Rooms. I'm going to freely talk about what the images are. I'm going to show my journal where I drew it. So people that say, "Are you just trying to sell a book, man?" After the book is published, I'll show the book. I'll read the entire book A to Z. Maybe I should do a video. I read the entire book A to Z. So people can't claim I'm doing it for money. Yeah. People can't claim I'm doing it for money. I'm going to have a free video. I'll read the entire book.
That's a good idea.
I just want the information to get out there.
I'm definitely going to buy that when it comes out, by the way.
Thank you. I haven't even ordered it yet. I want to order 500 copies, which costs like $4,000. So.
Oh wow, really?
I need to.
Have you thought about Lulu, or you really want the nice?
I want really nice hardback. Yeah. Now, if I cut it down to some cheap version, it'll be $2,000. And this is going straight to the Chinese factory, no middleman. Right. So if I go through some American company, they'll give me a paperback piece of garbage for marked up, and then they go straight to the Chinese factory. So I might as well go straight there. You can go straight to the factory through, that major Chinese mogul who has AliExpress.
Yeah, AliExpress.
I'm just going to do it through AliExpress. And I've already had some people make fun of me. "Oh, are you going to self-publish?" There's nothing wrong with self-publishing.
No, of course not.
No. Josh, you're on ChinaCart.com.
I am, yeah. I've actually, they put me on there as a model to advertise some of the costumes that I get. And
that's awesome.
Pretty much every other picture is me because I've bought most of the store. Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? I feel quite proud of that as well.
If you go to ChinaCart and look up the Zhuge Liang costume,
that's an achievement.
You'll see Josh's photo.
Yeah, I love to be near Kong Ming. I mean, I'm very enthusiastic about the robes. Even the magic aside, I just like those kind of robes anyway. I wear them when I'm not practicing magic. I just love them. But I feel that when you put on a robe and you actually ascend your altar, it's like practicing magic on steroids. It enhances the effect. It just means so much more. It's like putting an exclamation point on everything you do. It's just powerful.
Well, I was talking to Sam about this on my stream a couple nights ago, I believe. And I was talking about, people get Lord Josh maybe a little wrong. They see him in the ceremony, the costumes, and they think, "Oh, he's just trying to, he's just being funny or whatever it is." And I read a line from C.S. Lewis where he's talking about the medieval Renaissance, where, if you always wore your finest clothing to the rituals, and in doing so, you're actually doing an act of humility. You're losing yourself to the ritual and to the tradition. And so it's not a prideful thing, actually. It's actually an act of humility. It's pompous is not a bad word, as C.S. Lewis points out. It's actually a good word. It used to be a good word. Anyway, I was just that.
Well, we live in an age now where everything is so informal. So formality is seen as something stodgy and old-fashioned and unnecessary, which I don't think it is. I like a lot of the formalities. Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Hierarchy. And we know that hierarchies exist. I mean, we were just talking about the hierarchies of the demonic and how they, even according to exorcists, they have to follow. They're very legalistic in that way, and they have to follow that strict hierarchy. Well, what authority do you have here, though? And it's very interesting, But hierarchy is one of those words that have become misconstrued and misapplied in these times.
Well, you wouldn't believe the amount of hate that you get just because you wear a ritual robe.
Oh,
I mean,
right.
I get comments all the time from people saying there's no need to do that. That's unnecessary. And I'm thinking, well, maybe for your tradition, it might not be.
Right.
But for what I do, my Taoist tradition, it's absolutely necessary because obviously you've got Kong Ming. And he wore this fantastic square-shaped black robe with a silver border. And on the border was the embroidery of the red vermilion bird, but it was colored silver because silver is the source chi, the original source of creation chi. And he uses that across his borders on his robes. He's got the gold lotus crown, and he's got the belt. And that's all in accordance with the laws of harmony.
Right.
Black, white, and gray. Those are the best Taoist colors. You've got to wear those for the rituals. And especially with the weather magicians, because they wear black to help manifest the dark, stormy clouds, which is why in ancient times they would paint their faces black to encourage thunderstorms.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
It even ties in with ceremonial magic a little bit, and even a little bit of planetary magic, because if you look at Freemasonry or you look at the Kabbalah, you get the two pillars of Solomon, the black and the white one, Boaz and Joachim, this natural polarity, very much like yin and yang. But you also mentioned silver, and silver is the element of silver is also related to the moon, which is sort of like a transmitter. You know, it filters through, or all the other planets' energies filter through the moon, which is brought down to Earth. So really, you know, you're taking those two polarities, the black and the white, you're filtering it down through like the closest possible source to here on Earth, where we're creating our changes, manipulating the weather, you know, whatever we're trying to do.
Well, here's something I'm going to give out to the viewers, a little assignment, if you will. Try to find a Taoist who wears a black square robe. Other than me and other than Kong Ming, you won't. And the reason for that is because in China, only the Taoist weather magicians wear the black square robes, and it's outlawed there. So you will not find anybody apart from me alive today who wears that robe. I'm telling you now.
Holy.
So go ahead and try and find it. You won't.
I had to censor myself. I'm not going to cuss anymore, I promise.
Yeah, the book Magic and Mystery in Tibet, Lord Josh. Have you read that?
Oh, I haven't, no.
There is a mention of the Tibetan Buddhist practitioner. She considers herself a sorcerer, a Buddhist sorcerer. And she said she came in contact with weather her master said was specifically summoned by a magician, a sorcerer. And she said specifically he's trying to keep us out of this area. I guess they're walking up perhaps a rocky area, maybe a mountainous area, and out of nowhere, like hail out of nowhere. And he said it was definitely a weather magician that did it, or a weather sorcerer.
Oh, absolutely. Do you guys know how hail is created? Hail is created when yin and yang collide. Yeah.
Wow.
So a magician will make that happen, and that'll be very useful for the battlefield.
Oh, man.
I'm going to ask you guys a question. I know you already know this, because I asked this to everybody. There are two kinds of armies, right? The first is the troops, boots on the ground. What's the second army?
Your environment, the moon, the stars, the river, the mountains.
That's it. I asked that to everybody I come across.
Yeah. That's
I asked
that's
it to Joe March. You know, when I was on the Grand Infinity, who I think was a fantastic YouTuber, absolutely fantastic. It's such a shame he went. I mean, that's his business. If he wants to go, that's fine. But it's such a shame because he was brilliant, in my opinion. He
was. I wish he would come back, but he was a dad. You know, he's a very professional guy. So I wish him all the best wherever he's at.
Me too. I had a good interview with him, and he gave me a lot of respect. And I asked him that question, and he couldn't answer it as well.
So, Brandon, when I invite him to this pirate house, and the spirit does something, I was there the first time, I think 4 a.m. I was way early. And then the second time I went like at 12 a.m. and the third time was like 10 p.m. The spirit showed up all 3 times. And it's a very magical experience when the spirit shows up and starts manipulating. It's like a dreamlike state.
Interesting.
And you will experience it. It's not fake. It's real. It's as
I'd
genuine
love
as
to
it
come
gets.
down as well. I'd love it. I really would.
Anyone is invited. I know it's probably a great distance for many of you.
Yeah,
but,
it is.
If I didn't live on the East Coast, I would go.
Yeah, I happen to be right in the area.
I purposefully have never revealed the location because I don't want kids to turn it into a crap hole, you know?
Right.
It's a pretty pristine location. And it's owned clearly by, or ran by, the Parks Department, because you can see like posts, the oldest one from 1950. And the wooded area is totally, there used to be a path, which has totally been covered up by natural vegetation. So only the extreme locals very close to it know it exists. And I lived in the area most of my life, and I didn't know it existed until 2012.
I asked my girlfriend who lived and grew up there, and went to school with like Katy Perry and all that stuff. And she was like, huh? Pirate House? I was like, yeah, I think he built the mission. And she's like, oh, slaves built the mission. And I'm like, oh no.
He was like the foreman.
Yeah. But she didn't know. She's like, she had no idea. I mean, her brother lives right in Solvang, which is a little north. And like no one knows, like even locals, like, Pirate House. Oh.
No, I'm home of the pirates, and that's what it's named after, that guy. And no disrespect to the slaves, I think it's the Native Americans they forced to build those missions.
Oh, right.
Because I did go on a field trip, and the teacher said Native Americans built it. They were converted to Catholicism and forced to build the missions. Pretty sad situation. And I went to Mission Santa Barbara, and it said there are 5,000 Indians buried right here. And I was like, oh my gosh.
No, there's definitely a feeling there for sure.
I brought ghost detecting equipment, but I didn't turn it on because there's a camera, and it said, we're watching you. And I didn't want to disrespect the dead, and I didn't want to be kicked out.
Yeah.
And so I didn't turn it on.
It's not even owned by the church. It's actually, I think it's owned by the state of California or something like that.
Well, it's a historical monument at this point. Yeah.
I love the idea of shooting on location as well, traveling to a place, going there and actually making a video. I've got a dream. I would love to go to China, a place called Three Kingdoms City, where the original Altar of the Seven Stars is still located. The original altar where Kong Ming summoned the winds 1,800 years ago, it still stands today. And there's a statue of him on the top of it, and a yin-yang circle, and I'd love to go there and do a weather ritual, but I'd probably get kicked out, but I'd love it.
Speaking of Kong Ming, Josh, I had read this online somewhere, and I had never heard this before. I wanted to ask you about it. On a lot of doors in China, I found out that Kong Ming is painted on the door, similarly how you'll see certain lions or dragons.
That's right.
And the reason Kong Ming, actually, it's even on Kong Ming's Wikipedia page.
He's paired up with Sima Yi. Yeah.
The reason they put him on the doors, he's like a guardian spirit.
He's a Taoist door god. Yeah.
Yes, door god.
You have him on one side and Sima Yi on the other. Sima Yi, courtesy name Zhong De, was the nemesis of Kong Ming. He was also a genius. And people say they're around about the same, but I think Kong Ming was better because Sima Yi never had any occultism. He was very bright and intelligent, but he was not a Feng Shui practitioner. So when you go back in history, you always see the two. And in Dynasty Warriors, the video games, Kong Ming has a white fan, Sima Yi has a black. The duality. Wow. Yeah.
Very cool, man.
Did you know what Kong Ming invented? He invented the Chinese lantern, which, by the way, is called the Kong Ming lantern. It's not the Chinese lantern. It's what the Westerns call it. He invented the wheelbarrow. He made improvements to the crossbow. They called it the Zhuge crossbow. He did so many things with inventions. He was such a Renaissance man. In China, everybody knows him. He's a household name. But in the Western world, he doesn't have a whole lot of name value, and I think that's such a shame. But I'm working on that with my videos.
And I think the more you make videos about him and you give these live streams, you know, it filters off. You know, you get me talking about him, and then you get Brandon, and you get all these other people interested as well. It's like a tree starting to blossom, shall we say?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in terms of his other occult achievements, it wasn't just a one weather ritual that he did. He also did a Northern Dipper ritual to prolong his life by 12 years when he was gravely ill. And then he also stopped a river because there was this raging river. He was on one of his expeditions and his army couldn't cross it because it was so treacherous. He calmed the river down and they crossed it. So it wasn't just like one thing that he did. He did so many occult things. And
kind of reminds me of Moses, you know.
Right, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Parting the seas, yes.
I mean, there's even the theory out there that Kong Ming was never even human. He's like a demigod. And he always had these abilities, that he wasn't just a sorcerer, he was something else entirely. I don't know, but it's interesting to ponder it.
I think it kind of goes to, like, earlier we mentioned EA co-editing, and first we talked a little bit about just God in general, and then we talked about becoming a living God. I think that whenever, you know, and you see this concept way before EA co-editing, you'll see it in Aleister Crowley, you'll see it in Satanism in different places.
Yeah.
I think from my own personal understanding, you know, and I even try and pursue this too, to make myself a living God. It's not that I'm trying to say I'm better than anybody else or that I'm challenging the actual God, but I'm embracing the godlike qualities within myself. And I think that's what Kong Ming ultimately achieved, because he was an occult master. He was a Taoist master. And
he was.
I think that the difference, you know, between somebody who's like, okay, let's say the difference between an Aleister Crowley, like an Aleister Crowley and Anton LaVey versus a Lord Stephen Christ or a Jim Jones, is Aleister Crowley or Anton LaVey would encourage each and every one of you to find the God within yourself, to embrace that, to grow upon it, make it stronger. Where you get somebody like Jim Jones, who is basically making himself, like, you know, putting himself on a pedestal, worship me as God. Or Lord Stephen Christ, worship me as God. And these are false prophets. You know, they will bring you nothing but ruin and turmoil. And don't follow these false prophets, because they're ultimately, when you buy into false prophets, you're giving up your power. You don't, you don't have that inward reflection to embrace your own living God, let's say.
Because that's what Tao means. Tao means way. And, you know, it's not God, it's just way, and you have to follow that, but everyone's way is different. You know, I think my theories on becoming a living God is that you can become a living God for a very short amount of time. So when you're in the thick of your ritual and you're doing your spell, in that moment, you are in the center of your own universe and you are commanding reality. You are God in that moment, but you can't retain it. You can't be God all the time. Only when you're in your magic circle, in your robes, doing your magic. That's it. It's a temporary feeling.
At the end of the day, you're still going to go eat your cereal and take a shower and go, you know, whatever it is you do.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you guys ever heard of Sai Baba, the god from India?
No, I haven't.
I remember EA mentioned him, but I first heard of Sai Baba from people from Nepal, and they're very nice people. They made some Nepalese food, and I ate it, and it was delicious. And I noticed every picture in their house had this guy with an afro stuck to their. He's an Indian with a huge afro, naturally grown, you know, and he never wore socks. He always walked with bare feet, and people would throw petals wherever he walked. And he was considered a living god in India. They believe in many different gods, but his name changed when he showcased his magic powers. I think his teacher at a young age told him to do something, and he was smarter than the teacher, and he commanded the teacher to sit, and the teacher tried to stand up and he couldn't. He was stuck to his chair using supernatural powers, not super glue. And he showcased other magical abilities. And his most famous magic ability is he can materialize anything out of thin air. For example, he gives to his believers, and he has since passed on. But I asked this family, who is that guy? And they said, oh, he's just a god. No big deal. He's just a god. And I was like, okay. I never heard of him. So later I saw him at a 7-Eleven. Obviously, the 7-Eleven owner believed in him greatly and put his picture next to the candies in the front. And I recognized him. And he passed on, rest in peace. But you can check out Sai Baba. How do you spell his name? Let me. I think it's Saibaba, and he materializes trinkets for his believers. He would materialize a necklace out of nowhere by doing this.
Wow.
And he would just appear in his hand and he'd give it to them. And then he'd do it again. And then again. And so people look for the sleight of hand, but they can't find it. I don't know if he practiced legitimate teleportation via spirits or what. I have no idea. But he's definitely a fascinating individual. And I've tried to find him slip up, but the camera quality back when he was doing it.
Right. Yeah, it makes it difficult.
Yeah, it's difficult. But E.A. Koetting vouched for him. He said he really materialized objects. And,
like he's working magic on the molecular level, like literally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The best kind, really.
I heard spirits can teleport objects.
Oh, yes.
I heard a story recently. A spirit can teleport a steak through a ceiling. Have you heard this story? There's like a restaurant, and the owner, I fleetingly heard this story. I need to research it. I don't even know if it's real, but the Sai Baba story is interesting. And I don't know if there's a pile of trinkets somewhere that they teleport it to him or what. I don't know. I do not know.
The teleportation theory is quite interesting because obviously in a lot of science fiction, for example, one of my favorite movies, The Fly with Jeff Goldblum, 1986. Yes. That involves usually he comes apart and he reanimates at another point. Whereas I think there is no degeneration of cells. What happens really when it comes to the spiritual side is there are shadow corridors in time where you can go through them completely whole and come out the other side without having to break down. So there's no need for reanimation. They're called shadow corridors, and a scientist is actually looking into that. I do believe in that.
There was this is just sort of a secondhand knowledge that I had picked up. I've never met this guy or anything, but my dad, during his time in California, had talked with this anthropologist. He was a college professor, and he had went to northern Mexico. I think it was either during the late 60s or early 70s when Carlos Castaneda was very, very popular, and everybody wanted to take mushrooms and learn about the Yaqui Indians and stuff like this. But he had talked with one Brujo, a Yaqui Indian sorcerer, who had some very interesting powers. And the college professor claims he saw this man teleport from the top of a mountain to the bottom of a mountain, and that he actually used a bow and arrow to kill a man from about 60 yards away. Wow. So it's some pretty powerful shit. He definitely had, I can't explain it. I'm not even sure if science.
You know what that reminds me of? Have you guys heard of the famous Chinese magician Zhuo Se? Now, Zhuo Se was known as Master Blackhorn, and he was this old, frail-looking man. I think he was blind in one eye and he had a bum leg. And people would look at him and say, who's this guy? But he had incredible strength and endurance, and apparently he was able to live to 300 years old by Taoist breathing techniques and sexual cultivation. He was cultivating that qi. And there's a story in Romance of the Three Kingdoms where he goes to visit Cao Cao, a very famous warlord in the Han Dynasty. And Cao Cao says to him, you're just a trickster. What can you do? How about you go and get me this rare fish that's only available in this particular kind of province? So he actually teleports to that province and comes back with this fish. And then Cao Cao said, that's not true. This is just a trick. So he goes and does something else. Then you see him walk through walls, and then he transforms into animals. and he's pretty much well known as the most incredible Taoist mystic who has ever lived. Master Blackhorn, incredible. I look at him as like an idol of what I want to become, because he was able to do things that, you know, you look at Dynamo, the magician, and he does all those kind of tricks. Well, Zhuo Se was a lot like that. And apparently he retired from the world and went to live on a mountain and became a hermit and became an immortal. So, yeah, pretty amazing.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, I've heard of teleportation here and there. I believe in wormholes. I believe in some type of wormholes do exist. And who has the ability to open them? Someone of great power, obviously. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, you know, you look at HARP in Alaska, the weather control machine. Isn't it funny how people always say, you can't do this, you can't control the weather, or you can't do this magic. But scientifically, that's exactly what they're doing. They're controlling the weather via HARP. Now, if there's a way to scientifically do something, there's a way to naturally do it. There has to be. So when I'm doing my weather magic, it's a smaller scale of what's going on at HARP.
Right.
It's pretty frightening, though, what they're capable of.
So if anyone has to go, it's understandable. If Freethinker Silver, we've been doing this since, oh my gosh, almost 4 hours. This is so long.
Fantastic.
Wow.
This is a long stream.
But actually, I do have to eat dinner. Yeah, 3.5 hours.
All right.
No big deal. So thank you for joining us, Freethinker.
Yeah.
Hey, it was great to meet you.
Nice to meet you guys too.
Yeah, good to meet you.
And,
follow me on Twitter if you've got Twitter, man.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Peace out, everybody.
All right.
right.
See you
Bye.
later, First Thinker.
All right.
Silver.
So yeah, I got to have dinner pretty soon as well. But
Me three.
all right. So we're going to be ended it pretty soon. Does anyone have any parting thoughts you want to
I think
share?
there was a question in the chat. I think Oswald asked about are we aware that there is a festival going on in Oregon in March? And I said no. I say no.
I didn't hear about that. Yeah, I don't know.
No. Yeah.
And
Hello
Nick,
to Oswald, though. He's always in the live chats.
Oswald is great. Yeah.
so Nick Miller has a question about sigils. What do you have to say about sigil magic?
That's a very broad question, man.
I know.
Yeah.
He said specifically that I warned against it. And I think a sigil can call a spirit just like saying the name can, equally.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons I don't give spirits names. When I go to a location, I call it a spirit, I call it a ghost. If I give it a name, if I later say that name, it almost invites it into my house or wherever
Absolutely.
That's really interesting. That's the law of personification in my Taoist faith. Yeah.
I am.
Totally. I think, honestly, we had experimented. When I say we, I mean me, Logos of Ophiel, and R.C. Lee had kind of experimented with that principle using the goetic sigils and the spirit box, but it even kind of goes beyond that. I found out, early on, before I really knew a lot about spirit summoning using sigils with spirits that or for spirits, that I would think, you probably have to get all these candles, incense stuff, which ideally you should to please the spirit, but all you really need to summon the spirit is its sigil. And then later on after that, I found out you don't even need the sigil. If you have the name or the knowledge of it, just the name, like John said, is enough to summon the spirit.
Or sometimes it's corresponding color as well. So you could color code your candles or flags, and that'll make it come through. Yeah.
I do believe that every spirit, whether you want to look at the tree of life or a chakra system or whatever, I do believe every spirit resonates with a certain color or a certain vibration.
The mats would be orange and purple, and I would say Kongming would be black, white, and gray. Yeah.
Sometimes, spirits can even be like people, though. There's more than one side to them, and you might even get let's say in voodoo, Baron Simzi, Baron of the Cemetery, his colors would be purple and black, but for somebody else, it might just be white. Or let's say Papa Legba, his color is red, but in a certain other ritual under a certain context, it might be blue. So it really depends on what aspect of the spirit. But going back to the question about sigils, there's a lot of videos on YouTube about this. It's almost been beat to death, but I do want you to check it out at home. Austin Osman Spare, who was sort of the godfather of chaos magic in a sense, he's got a famous formula for creating your own sigils to get things that you want. And basically all you do is you write out a word or you write out a statement of intent on a piece of paper. You get rid of all the vowels, and then you take what letters are left, get rid of any repeating letters, and then you'll take that last set of letters, and what you do is you put all the letters together, get creative with it too, to make a picture or make a sigil out of the remaining letters. And you can get as abstract with it as you want. You can make your M's look like W's or make them look like zigzags or whatever it might be. And we see that a lot in modern 80s, late 70s, 80s chaos magic as well.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. That's great information.
Thank you, brother.
So we're going to be ending pretty soon, but there is a 10K subscriber contest giveaway that doesn't involve $10,000.
Rats!
It's a 10K giveaway, but there's a T-shirt, an album, and I'll include a poster, and I am going to get patches made up. See, this hat has a military-style Velcro.
Very
I'm going to have patches made to go. The Mysterialis Ghost Investigation patch. I was trying to think of a cool name, like the Ghost Squad or something stupid. But
we came close. Yeah.
It ends up sounding dumber. So I'm just going to stick with Mysterialis Ghost Investigation. And Mysterialis is just Latin for mysterious. That's it. That's all it is. And, I like to focus on ghost investigating, whereas a paranormal investigator, they might branch off into UFOs or Bigfoot. I focus on spirits, not Bigfoot and UFOs. So I'm not necessarily a paranormal investigator. I focus on spirits. And ghost is a really generic word for spirit people recognize.
John, this is a little bit off subject, but since you mentioned UFOs and Bigfoot, I've got to bring them up. You probably already know what I'm going to say. Is there any chance we're going to see more of David Liebehart?
I bump into him in LA. I know his spots that he goes to, but his current manager / business partner / bandmate, he really tours. He tours with him all around the world. And so last time I was in LA, David Liebehart was out of town. But yeah, if I catch him, I'll definitely say, do you have any suggestions? What do you want David Liebehart to talk about?
Oh, wow.
Anything that comes out of that man's mouth, I'm interested to hear it. Corinthians, aliens, anything.
He said he could see spirits when he was a kid. And when he grew up, he lost the ability.
Oh, what a shame.
I believe him. So even though people see him as a comedy thing, he does have authentic paranormal stories to share,
Yeah. The Pickle Man and Mr. Moose. If you ever heard that song, see that video, I think he drew that. And that was a real entity that would tickle, quote unquote, him and I think his sister when they were living.
Yeah.
And
he said he first saw the spirit in the corner of the room in a Chinese chair, just sitting there. Who knows how many years? And he noticed him, and then it started harassing him because he saw it. I think spirits will definitely pay more attention to you, like the Whoopi Goldberg in the movie Ghost scenario. When they know you can hear them, they will bother you more so than if you ignore them,
Mm-hmm.
Where consciousness goes, energy flows.
That's so true, isn't it? So true.
Well, we got to get going, but
All
thank
right.
you all for joining us. Lord
Thanks,
Josh,
John.
Sam
Yeah, I
Shadow,
loved it.
Brandon Young, Freethinker Silver. Thank you, all of us, all of you for joining.
Thank you, audience.
Everybody give yourself a pat on the back.
Oh, John, do you want to really quick just show, like, again, the 10K, like, I think we explained it, but the prizes that are up? There's the album.
Oh, the prizes?
Yeah.
Oh, well, we have, the Kuntosh album by
Beautiful artwork. I love that artwork.
by Shooter Jennings. Yeah, it's a really cool cover. And I bought 3 copies. So I'm giving away 2. My room is really dusty. All right. And here's a t-shirt. Go to my Teespring, and the winners can pick what t-shirt they want. I will order it. And you have to watch 3 of my videos. And the contest details are on my Twitter and in the little comment section on my YouTube. Just watch 3 of my videos. I give you the exact moment on one of them. One of them is 3 minutes in, and the other one is maybe halfway in. Just skip to the answer. What's the mountain in my last video that I mentioned? What's the name that I zoom in on my Comedy Store investigation? And it's my favorite comedian, And the last one is what's the first word I mentioned in the review I did of this L.W. DeLawrence little booklet on telekinesis, no, it's on telepathy, actually. And so I'm going to give, I guess, 5 people. I guess I'll have 5. 5th place. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. 1st and 2nd place will get a vinyl and a t-shirt and a poster. 2nd, or 3rd, 4th, and 5th place will get a poster, and I'll try to find something else. Like, I'll do a soundtrack. At 5K, I did a soundtrack. So everyone gets a soundtrack. It's just the music I put on my channel. I make it myself with these corny instruments.
Oh, brilliant.
So good.
Great.
So good. I have
Because
the album.
My channel never gets music copyright strikes because I make it myself, and that's the only motivation for that. But, I'll do an album. It's going to be printed with a machine and really cheaply made, and I'll sign it, even though I'm not famous. No one cares. Thank you for the support. I appreciate it. 10,000 subscribers. That's a lot. People make fun of me, perhaps. But now I can say I'm in the 10K club. I think everyone here can join the 10K club. Just all you got to do is upload consistently the same type of stuff. If you make it too different, which I've done, I kind of broke my own rule. I did hoax hunter stuff, and then I changed into ghost investigation. That's pretty opposite. But as long as you're consistent, I did Occult Unmasked. People like that. But I'm focusing on Mysterialis Ghost Investigation. So
awesome, man.
This is the you can all be honorary members if you'd like to join the Mysterialis Ghost Investigation group.
Yes.
And just email me. You know what? I can send you out a t-shirt. If you're on this show, you can get a t-shirt. So just email me, razimus@gmail.com. Check my other video links. You'll see my Teespring. I don't have that many t-shirts available, but I'm going to make new stuff. And this is, if you will, a sigil.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
It's the Mysterialis sigil.
A lot of
I wanted it to be unique. I didn't rip it off from anything. It's just the M kind of in runic, but I kind of gave it lightning. And then I gave it teeth. Because there's a lot of wimpy ghost hunters out there that are just doing it for laughs.
Yeah.
I don't do it for jokes. It's not clickbait. It's the real deal. And I just wanted it to be a tougher logo. Then here's my first logo. It's a little kind of corny ghost. I scribbled it. But does anyone want to say anything else? Or are we just going to be signing off?
Had an awesome time. I want to say,
me too. It was great. I loved it.
All right. Thank you for joining us. You're invited to the next one and the next one and the next one.
Oh, brilliant.
I'm going to try to have more live streams because the reason live streams help a channel is because it's like people being pinged that are subscribed to you that, hey, here's a new video. And they get that ping for as long as the video is live.
Yeah.
Whereas they don't get the notice on videos that aren't live as much.
Interesting.
So I think it helps a channel grow doing live stream videos.
Yeah.
But I thank you for watching. And until next time, I'm John Razimus. Be seeing you.